Meet Hansung, the commander-in-chief of an Earth getting totally wrecked by flesh-eating monsters. Right in the middle of a war, a magical portal just opens up and yoinks him into a different world where mages are a thing. They immediately hyped him up as the hero from another world, the one guy who could save their empire from the Demon King. All Hansung wanted was to go home, but they weren't having it, so they tortured and enslaved him with a powerful spell. He was forced to spend the next decade of his life as their personal killing machine, all for the sake of the empire. He did all this just so he might one day taste freedom again, and he actually managed to defeat the Demon King. But even after his victory, the empire wasn't about to let him walk. They hit him with one final mission. They ordered him to eliminate the Radiant Knight, Sir Dale treating Hansung like a puppet on a string for their own schemes. Because of the spell, he couldn't refuse their command, so he fought and killed Sir Batel. But then things took a wild turn. A blade was suddenly thrust right into Hansung's back. He'd spent years being tortured just to serve an empire that betrayed him in the end. Count Brandenburg basically treated the otherworldly hero like a disposable tool used and then thrown away. Our hero met a tragic fate and swore on his life he would never forget the humiliation they put him through. That very same night, his spirit found its way into another body, a baby boy welcomed by Lady Elena. And the kid's father was none other than the most cracked necromancer on the continent, Duke Saxon. Turns out, right before his death, Hansung had managed to steal a stone of reincarnation, which was his only ticket to freedom. But he low-key never dreamed he'd be reborn into a family of high-ranking nobles. Bro was so ready to live the good life, all while secretly cooking up the ultimate revenge plot to destroy those who wronged him. Duke Saxon noticed the kid's weird vibe right away. The baby didn't cry, not even once after being born, making his dad wonder if this was a bad omen. But have no fear, the nanny showed up to save the day with her ultimate move, the butt pats of death. The same legendary hero was now suffering some next-level torture from a nanny's hands. To make matters worse, his new mom decided it was her turn. While Hansung was mentally begging them to stop, his mama raised her hand, but it wasn't to give him a spanking. Instead, she gently caressed him. It was the first time he had ever felt a warm embrace against his skin. Hansung had only ever known loneliness in this world, but this one comforting touch brought him to tears. And just like that, he started crying in a way he never thought possible, which is the literal definition of making a grown man cry. In the master bedroom, Dale's parents were talking about how proud they were of his progress. The 8-year-old was killing it. The kid had been studying non-stop ever since he was 4, and his father totally understood Dale's interest in magic. But his wife pulled his face close, reminding Alan about a promise they made. They had promised to never teach their young son the dark art of necromancy. She anxiously reminded him, but Alan gave his assurance. He told her he had already prepared a completely different gift for their boy's upcoming birthday. A sudden knock on the door completely steals their attention, as a maid bursts in sharing a shocking update on Dale's situation. After hearing this, his parents sprinted as fast as they could to the study, where our boy was trembling. He was covered in a mystical blue aura that wrapped around him as he called out to his parents. Dale's mom immediately started scolding him while checking his condition, but his dad was way more analytical about the whole thing. He could literally sense the immense mana flowing through the air. Their child was only 8 years old and was already releasing this insane level of power. All of a sudden, his dad let out this terrifying aura that washed over Dale as he questioned if his son had just released mana. Now our boy knows he's about to get sent into orbit if he doesn't say the right thing to make his papa happy. Even Dale was shocked that he unleashed such a ridiculous amount of mana, and he knew that if he didn't answer quick, his old man was probably going to be furious. Surprisingly, though, his dad just smiled and actually patted his head, beaming with pride over his son's achievement. He mentioned that it's a real shame he can't teach him necromancy, a confession that our boy found super weird. Internally, he's absolutely livid because not learning necromancy would completely torpedo his plans for revenge. The boy's mother tells him to go get some rest while the maids clean up, and as he's running off, Alan and Elena share a peaceful moment. His father has now figured out the absolute perfect gift for him. So let's jump ahead to the birthday banquet, cause parties are always lit. A huge crowd of people have gathered nobles from all across the Noir dukedom, and they're all curious when the little young master will finally show up. Some of them haven't seen him in a hot minute, and everyone's waiting for the guest of honor. Or should I say the birthday boy is currently upstairs fully embracing his inner hermit. Dale finds it a total drag having to meet and greet all these people at his own party, wondering if it's because of how he was once treated. They treated him like absolute dirt when he was a hero, so getting gassed up now like he's some big-shot noble's son just feels fake. Thinking back to what went down the other day, Dale remembers the specifics of how his mana just burst out. You see, he was actually going through the records of his past life as a hero, Despite all the talent he has now as the young master, it seriously bugs him that none of it will mean anything if his dad doesn't teach him necromancy. Dale started snooping on his parents, trying to cook up a scheme to convince them. He even considered just asking for direct lessons, but he knew that move was way too reckless and would get shot down instantly. At that moment, the boy's mother Elena walks in wearing a jaw-dropping dress to congratulate her son. The young master, full of curiosity, asks who the cloaked person hiding behind her is, and they quickly pull back their hood. She's introduced as the Elder of the Blue Magic Tower, and this stunning blue demon is a master of the water attribute. Elena introduces Sophia as the kid's brand new teacher. Sophia gives the young boy a warm greeting, saying she's ready to work with him. Meanwhile, our boy is having a full-on meltdown, unable to process that they're assigning an actual tower master to him. This basically means his new focus is going to be magic, which isn't exactly the W he was hoping for. Since it's purely for defense specialization, it proves to him that his mother, Elena, really doesn't want her kid learning spooky dark magic to become some corny third-rate Sung Jin Woo copycat. Anyway, Sophia wants to have a one-on-one chat with the boy, and the young master is down with her request. They step outside into a snow-covered field where the Blue Magic Tower Master lays down the law. She tells the kid that from this point forward he's only learning water magic. But Loki Sophia can sense his heart isn't in it. She knows he's dying to learn something totally different, and her sharp observation leaves him stunned for a sec. Sophia explains that it's painfully obvious he'd want to chase after necromancy and dark magic. The real issue is, the state of the current Duke's marriage is basically public knowledge across the Empire. See, ever since the Duke got the hots for Elena and married her, she got paranoid that their family would get a bad reputation. That meant he couldn't pass down any dark magic to their kids. I don't know about you, but damn, this woman is playing the controlling, overprotective tiger mom role way too hard. No cap, even at their wedding, she forced everyone to wear white instead of black. Sophia continues explaining that because of that old promise, they damn be and be big stars. Dale's dream is a total fantasy, and there's no way he'll be able to learn dark magic. However, the enlightened Tower Master actually has a different idea. She's willing to try and persuade the young master's mother, but only if he agrees to follow her guidance to the letter. At this point, our boy finds himself completely thrown for a loop. He's shocked by Sophia's acceptance of necromancy, especially since she's an elf who's supposed to be all about the laws of nature. And you know the whole act of raising the dead is considered pretty messed up. The Blue Tower Master just laughs, amused by his words. She then asks him what he thinks about priests who bring the dead back to life. She figures the idea of reincarnation, a resurrection, is pretty much the same as necromancy if you think about it. Just from this one conversation, Dale can already tell just how wise his new teacher is. She's got an incredibly open mind. That quality alone might make her the best teacher he could have asked for. Wrapping things up, Sophia decides it's time for their very first lesson. She knows Dale's already got a small piece of his mana circle formed. So, his first task is to expand it until it becomes a complete first circle. Dale is definitely intrigued. He can see that her approach totally aligns with his own goals. With Sophia's help, he places his hand over his heart. He feels a whole internal world just explode open inside him. This place is overflowing with mana, but here's the problem: only cracked beings. Like dragons can actually handle the full power of raw mana. For humans, a filter is an absolute must. This is what's known as a mana heart circle. The goal is to gather the circle's fragments around the heart, rearrange them, and get them moving. This creates a proper circle that channels a steady flow around the heart. Dale follows her instructions and absolutely nails the objective on his first try. For the next step, she tells him to make the mana rotate around his heart. This part of the training usually takes at least a month. So she's telling him not to sweat it, but then get this, the kid literally pulls it off in a split second. The 8-year-old's success completely blows the Tower Master's mind. Bruh, this is the same kid who just started his training. He already managed to form his first circle in just a couple of moments. From this alone, it's crystal clear that our boy is a certified prodigy, no cap. A completely stunned Sophia tells him to channel mana through the circle. So following her directions, he focuses on controlling it. He's well aware of how tough this is for total beginners. Even in his first life, he couldn't hold a candle to someone like Duke Saxon. The most he could manage back then was using destruction spells that were literally carved into his body. But this life hits different. Since he inherited his father's raw talent, he now has the chance to learn all kinds of magic. Dale's focus sharpens, zeroing in on his fingertips. Pushing his mana to a point on the circle, his past life experience helps him form the shape of an icicle shard. Sophia is watching with intense curiosity, noting how Dale has perfectly crystallized his mana into a functional ice bolt. The shot zips straight into a tree, blasting it into smithereens, and Sophia is once again completely floored. She figured his power would be pretty weak because of his form, but this kid straight up obliterated the tree. Her brand new student's talent was just on another level. The Tower Master was totally shook. Blown away by his perfect ice spell, the boy himself is just confused and wonders if he somehow screwed up. You gotta understand the magic formula he used is way beyond what a normal kid should be able to do, pairing rotation with acceleration. And then he added congestion. All three of those stages create the golden ratio of a spell which Sophia just saw this kid execute. He pulled off an absolutely massive spell with terrifying efficiency. She's shaken right down to her soul, realizing just how rare his talent is. So, in the very next scene, this woman, he slaps her resignation letter down in front of the Duke. Bro is in disbelief, unable to process why a master of her standing is just quitting. Sophia cuts him off, explaining how the young master unleashed a horrifyingly lethal spell during his first ever lesson. The Duke is frozen in shock. He's completely speechless. Sophia then adds that the 8-year-old even applied the golden ratio. Long story short, she's basically calling Dale the perfect candidate to become the ultimate weapon. The boy's father finally gets it. Sophia's defensive teaching style is simply not going to work with Dale's natural affinity for absolute destruction. But Sophia shuts that down, insisting that she feels an obligation to be the one who guides the boy's development. Of course, the Duke thinks she's being crazy for trying to back out now. That's when Sophia's whole demeanor changes. She points to the dark magic that runs in Alan's family. While she knows about the marriage vow with Lady Elena, she's not having it. With zero chill, Sophia straight up calls them out on their BS for trying to stunt Dale's growth, especially since his talent is so completely off the charts. Meanwhile, the young master is sneakily trying to listen in on their talk. He can't really make out what they're saying though, and he's getting seriously worried about his own fate. Dale wasn't even trying to cast such a crazy powerful spell, and he can't forget how pale Sophia looked when he did. His biggest issue now is that he can't seem to control his own power output, something he knows he has to get a handle on. The boy's train of thought is derailed by the sudden appearance of his Uncle Helmet. The uncle is beyond thrilled to meet the young master, and Dale is just as eager to hear about his journeys. Helmet explains that he was away, fulfilling his duty to protect the family and taking down some seriously powerful monsters. Our boy immediately pieces it together and realizes his uncle was off fighting in a dungeon. Okay, let's zoom out and break down how this world works. Dungeons spawn monsters. For any noble territory, that's basically a war zone. Back when the Demon King was running things, these monsters were on a rampage causing insane destruction. Knights in the modern day are sent out on missions to make sure these monsters don't ever overflow again. Their one goal is to take out anything that breaks out of the dungeon. The territory of Duke Saxon is facing more heat than usual, mainly because of Dale's past life as the hero. Even though he totally clapped the Demon King, the boss's former territory was left standing for the Empire to deal with. In other words, they got stuck handling the Demon King's leftover mess. Dale and Helmet's reunion is interrupted by another guest, the Duke himself. Alan gives Helmet props for his incredible dedication to protecting their land, but what's really on his mind? What surprises Dale, though, is his mother showing up. Lady Elena greets him absolutely beaming after finding out he hit the first circle. They're so proud they offer him a gift, which gets our boy's gears turning. Dale totally considers asking for some necromancy training, but then he figures that would probably kill the vibe. So, instead my guy pulls a massive wild card and deadass asks his parents to go make him a new baby sister. Both of them are completely stun-locked by the request, while Helmet is just dying of laughter at the kid's sheer audacity. Later that night, the young master is trying to rest, but he's low-key pissed off that he has to keep up this whole "I'm just a kid" act. Just to fit in, you know. Exhaustion finally takes over, and he falls right into a nightmare where his former self, Hansung, gets backstabbed by that same traitorous knight all over again. The ghost of his past even taunts Hansung for enjoying his new cushy life. It drops a chilling threat saying that the Empire will hunt him down sooner or later. They're gonna find him and wipe him off the face of the earth again. This insane nightmare jolts our boy awake with his mana going wild. His chest aches like it's about to explode from the pressure. This is what you call a mana rampage, a seriously violent phenomenon. Dale hardens his resolve. He's cursing the Empire for refusing to let him go, even in death. He steps outside trying to get some fresh air, but the raw magic just keeps leaking out of his body, getting worse and worse by the second. As he starts to panic, he spots a beacon of hope. It's Master Sophia, who immediately pities the kid for having to go through a mana rampage at his age. In an instant, she places her hand on his chest and begins siphoning off the chaotic excess energy. Sophia knows that if Dale's magic becomes corrupted, it's game over. Nobody could ever reverse that process. Thanks to her quick thinking, the rampaging mana gets neutralized. Sophia then looks at the young master and starts to explain the true nature of magic. She says it's basically linked to the mirror of a person's heart. Essentially, every mage is built different, with a unique capacity for magic because of their soul. And in Dale's case, his talent is no cap specialized in unaliving people. This gruesome gift is a huge danger to others, and to himself. She hands him a spell book, proud to be his teacher for a brand new art. It's a book on necromancy. Sophia calls it a pretty amusing twist of fate, that they'll be learning this together from now on. This is her birthday gift to the young boy. He's so grateful he immediately wraps her in a tight hug. A few days go by and we get a scene just outside the northern gate. Sophia brought him out here to practice on some rabbits. She wants this to be kinda like the hunting experience Dale had with his father. He follows her instructions carefully. Our boy winds up a heavy-duty spell to send one unlucky rabbit straight to the Shadow Realm. His concentrated ice shard flies at an insane speed, and on impact it completely vaporizes the rabbit's flesh. A clean execution. But Sophia clocks something interesting. Dale had just taken a life, but his expression showed zero hesitation or wavering. She reminds him of what she mentioned before, about how the exact same spell can be totally different depending on the mage casting it. The young master has no idea what she's getting at. So, Sophia explains the idea of magic acting like a mirror to your soul, revealing a person's true self. She continues by talking about spell names. Things like Firewall, for example. In reality, these names are just tools to help a mage carve out magic from their own imagination. For example, the red magic tower values strength above all else, while the blue tower emphasizes harmony. Each of them has a different core philosophy, which becomes the defining blueprint for their magic. This philosophy directly impacts every spell. It's literally the foundation of their entire magic system. There were other towers as well, like Noir White and Green. This long info dump doesn't get much of a reaction out of Dale. Sophia figures she was probably yapping on for a little too long. So, she decides to kick things up a notch with necromancy. Dale channels its most basic spell-gathering dark energy around the rabbit's corpse. Tendrils of purplish-black energy swarm the body, using mana strings to take control of it. Necromancy works by using focus points on the head, the spine, and the knees. These strings are the instruments of control. Dale performs the spell perfectly, earning some big praise from his teacher. They immediately move on to the second stage, which requires an ice spell called Frozen Armor. He sends a path of icicles toward the rabbit. He encases the undead rabbit in a powerful spiky suit of armor. This little dude is now ready for battle. Sophia compliments the armor's design, but wants to see how well it holds up. So, she conjures a bunch of ice spikes. She directs a whole spiral of them straight at the armored corpse. The spikes completely obliterate the armor on contact and send the rabbit flying. However, a small thin layer somehow manages to stay intact. This makes Dale incredibly happy. So, the defense was a success, but Sophia can read the eager look on his face. She wonders if the young master has a question he's been meaning to ask. Full of excitement, our boy speaks up. He's practically begging her to teach him water magic too, which low-key brings a smile to her face. But Sophia's response is a total shocker. She straight up shuts him down, explaining that what he did was the most basic entry-level use of water magic. She explains that among all magic types, water has a ridiculous learning curve and requires a constantly evolving understanding. Most beginners can't even get a handle on one magic type, and the only people who can manage two are known as rare dual mages. Even with our boy's insane talent, Sophia thinks it's impossible for him to learn two elements at the same level. In fact, she totally shatters his expectations, calling him out for being way too overconfident. Bruh, his whole reality just collapsed. Even though he pulled off some amazing magic in his teacher's eyes, he's still a complete amateur. The thought just freezes our boy in despair, and honestly, who wouldn't be crushed by that? Dale is so let down by her answer that he just calls it a day and ends the lesson right there. That same night, our former hero heads to his study. The dude has a ridiculous amount of confidence in his own skills. He truly believes he can do anything, as long as he learns enough like the Force is awakening inside him. And yeah, that might be a Star Wars pun, but little Anakin over here is dead set on becoming a Jedi. After pulling an all-nighter and working his butt off, Dale shows up at the training grounds the next day, looking absolutely exhausted. He's so out of it that Sophia has to call his name several times. She can instantly tell he overdid it and didn't sleep a wink. As his teacher, she's actually worried the young boy is going to overwork himself. But Dale is ready to show her what he's made of. First he revives the rabbit, then he covers it in that same armor. The Blue Tower Master is genuinely impressed by how quickly he mastered combining the two spells. But then a crazy development happens when Dale takes that same armor and detonates it in a huge explosion. The blast shoots out razor-sharp spikes of ice in all directions. Sophia is completely stunned, because that was just the opening act. The undead rabbit then starts emitting purple fumes. Right before it erupts with a massive discharge of purple energy, the rabbit explodes again. It launches ice bolts everywhere, catching Sophia so off guard that she has to throw up a defensive barrier to block them. Once his assault is over, her face is just completely blank. Dale doesn't even look impressed with himself, and reveals his newly learned corpse and ice explosion abilities. By wielding both attributes, he was able to merge their effects. He then cheekily mocks his teacher, asking if he can finally be called a dual mage now. The enlightened elf is just left totally baffled. She has never seen an attack like this before, a blend of ice and dark magic that creates a super complex explosion trap. The detonation wasn't even the last move. Dale's use of the spikes was just the cherry on top. Sophia feels completely outmatched, like she's dealing with someone whose only purpose is to kill, to just slaughter people mercilessly on a battlefield. It makes her question what kind of mental image is forming inside Dale's head, with no idea that it's Han Sung's intimidating bloodlust. The young master then spots Uncle Helmet again riding a horse. He's brought his crew back after raiding another dungeon. This time, though, it was a smaller group of monsters. Helmet also gives major props to the Black Cavalry for their solid assist. The Black Cavalry is an elite unit of lancers. They have this immense dark aura, and are considered the most powerful cavalry in the whole dukedom of Saxon. Their leader is the Knight Captain Helmet himself, and he's known as one of the 7 strongest sword masters on the entire continent. Our young master has nothing but respect for him and begs the captain to teach him a few sword techniques. Helmet politely turns down the offer, so the kid just wishes him farewell for the journey. With Captain Helmet now gone, Sophia decides it's probably time for them to head back too. We cut to later that night where Sophia is reporting Dale's use of dual magic from their most recent training session. The Duke is a little shocked to hear about Dale using necromancy magic, while Lady Elena just looks disappointed. Sophia explains she went against her orders and ended up teaching the boy more than just water magic. She says she didn't want to put a limit on the scope of his training, and adds that the young master himself expressed a deep interest in learning necromancy. After a tense pause, Lady Elena speaks. She still hardcore rejects the idea of dark magic, and tells Sophia to stick to teaching him, the water attribute no exceptions. Instead, the Blue Master promises she'll personally handle the boy before she bounces, which low-key makes Sophia feel a stab of guilt. She quickly turns to apologize to Lord Noir for completely breaking their deal, and Dale's mom just lets out a heavy sigh. She can't help but mention how proud she is that Dale can already handle 2 magic circles at his young age. He acts like it's no big deal for their son to be so cracked, but you can feel the fear and disappointment radiating off him. The Duke finally speaks up against his wife, revealing he wants to teach Dale necromancy and mold the kid into his perfect heir. He wants a talented mage and a successor, all in one, saying it's his right to pass down his magic to his own son. Even though he feels like absolute trash for going back on their promise, Dale's mom, totally worried, reminds him that the public still thinks necromancy is some evil forbidden art. That was the entire reason she desperately wanted to keep their kid off that specific path. But Lady Elena has clearly accepted her new reality and doesn't give a damn about public opinion anymore, giving her husband the green light to teach Dale necromancy. The Duke is just left speechless, because apparently only in a Manhwa does a woman actually take full responsibility. And so Dale's real necromancy training is about to start, and hilariously, his first lesson is a total train wreck. The Duke is super disappointed in Dale's awful control. The kid can't do anything because Sophia's beginner lessons were all he knew. They're down in the magic workshop, a secret room deep in the castle's basement where his dad brought him. It's time to show him what real necromancy looks like. And first on the list, his dad summons a mountain of books for the kid to memorize. Dale's main job is to absorb the structure of every single life form, like a human sponge, so he can control them effectively. Time passes as the poor kid crams every book, and with the basics finally covered, the Duke moves him on to practical magic. Dale is super hyped for a real lesson, but he's immediately startled when he sees a goblin corpse just chilling in front of him. His dad can see the confusion on his face and starts to break down what's happening. He explains that what separates talented necromancers from the rest is their ability to turn even basic undead into powerful death knights. This goblin is basically a starter undead soldier, and he's curious to see how Dale handles it as dark magic starts to flow into his hands. But Dale immediately hits a wall, because controlling a tiny rabbit is one thing. A goblin is way more complex, and when he tries to use his mana strings, his first connection attempt totally fails. He keeps trying though, hammering away at the connection and weaving his threads to get control of the puppet, even trying a different method. But he still can't get the goblin to so much as twitch a muscle. The young master is completely stuck with no idea what to do, which is when his father steps in. He actually compliments the kid for making the corpse's body rigid first, but explains that the downside is it completely restricts its movement. To show him a real solution, the Duke unleashes his own dark, shadowy tendrils. They swarm the goblin's body in a super efficient way, but instead of the limbs, he targets the ribcage. Ribs are supposed to protect organs, but a corpse doesn't need them, so he reshapes the ribcage into a wicked set of claws. They burst right out of the undead's arm. This is the true art of necromancy, altering the dead to suit your needs. Dale is beyond impressed, and turns to his father asking to be taught the real secrets of the Noir Magic Tower. The Duke smiles, beaming with pride at his son's passion, and gets on his level to share some wisdom. He tells him that the truth of black magic lies in death, and to be the ultimate necromancer, you first have to understand the value of life. The Duke's words send him flashing back to his past life, as Han Sung towering over a begging enemy, with his eyes glowing red and merciless. His sword was already raised, and before the guy could even finish pleading, Han Sung turned his face into a modern art piece. The Duke snaps the boy out of the traumatic memory, but a haunted look is still plastered all over his face. Dale realizes his past was just a river of blood and bodies, but he plays it cool in front of his dad, acting like he's totally fine. The young master's training progresses day by day, while rumors about Duke Saxon teaching his son necromancy spread across the empire like wildfire. The fact that he shattered his vow to his wife got everyone's attention, and because of that, he's now the main topic of conversation among all the nobles. For better or worse, they're all watching Dale's progress. A few weeks later, the young boy is in a fierce training battle with his uncle. They're exchanging a storm of slashes until Helmet suddenly swings his sword right near the boy's head. Shockingly, the kid deflects it with so much power that Helmet's weapon gets knocked right out of his hand. The boy's uncle is blown away by his skill. This kid is just built different now. Our boy Dale knows this was a setup. Helmet totally dropped his weapon on purpose, but that's not the whole story. It's actually because Dale unleashed some next-level sword techniques that could have easily ended someone in a real fight, leaving our MC's hands completely swollen. But hey, he still clutched the win, so we take those. Helmet is absolutely floored by his swordsmanship, wondering why a kid this talented is trying to be a mage. Then again, knights are basically glorified bodyguards for mages, so Helmet can't figure out why Dale is pushing himself this hard either. It's low-key stressful because he's afraid the kid's gonna get seriously injured training like this. With his hand all bandaged up, Dale hits him back with some serious determination. He says he doesn't want to depend on guards to keep him safe 24/7, but that's just the cover story. This sly kid's actual goal is to soak up all the sword mastery knowledge he can from his cracked-out uncle. Helmet just laughs. He calls it a fantastic answer. They're having a good moment when out of nowhere, Dale's mother shows up. The young master is totally confused, asking himself why she's out here on the chilly training grounds. Elena explains she came to see how he was doing, and she drops the bomb that she has some news for him. First, she brings up the birthday gift Dale had asked for. The kid is clueless for a sec, until it hits him. He asked for a little sister. Welp, it seems the Duke got to work that very night. And wouldn't you know it, a baby is officially on the way. Dale is absolutely over the moon hearing the news. 10 months fly by and you guessed it. A little sister has been successfully manufactured. The young master can hardly process that he's finally got a sibling. Lady Elena even asks if he wants to hold the baby, which completely shocks him. Dale gently takes his baby sister, and crazily enough, she immediately quiets down in his arms. Drop a W in the comments for Papa Duke's dedication. No cap. Our young master is holding his precious sister, while his father gets all serious, saying this is the true weight of life and the very thing he must learn to protect. And with that, it's time for his next lesson. Fast forwarding to a session with Master Sophia, she's about to teach him some actual combat. Dale is pretty stunned that she's suggesting they fight for real. The Blue Tower Master gives him the green light to come at her with everything he's got. With that, our boy whips up a magic circle to cook up a spell, while his teacher Sophia eagerly waits to see just how much he's leveled up. The first thing he does is blast an ice bolt straight for her head. Sophia just casually bats it away, calling his first move way too slow. She does the exact same thing to his follow-up attack. Then she calls him out on his BS, telling him to stop going easy on her. Dale is speechless, realizing he's been caught. Sophia smiles and offers to throw the first punch, even warning him to quickly get a barrier up. Absolutely terrified, the young master just barely blocks her attack. If he hadn't reacted in time, he would have been seriously messed up. Sophia looks pretty pleased. The kid's reflexes were insane, letting him conjure ice armor at the very last second. That defense worked, but now she wants him to come at her for real. Placing his hand on the ground, the young master starts messing with the molecular structure of the ground itself, raising a massive wall of ice. This absolute unit of a wall catches Sophia off guard. She has no idea what he's planning with a move like this. At a glance, she can tell the ice is incredibly dense, which means it's definitely built to last. Still, Sophia can't put her finger on why he'd throw up a defensive ice wall of all things. The only thing she can think of is that maybe the kid is just trying to buy time to get his mana back. Oh, but you guys are not ready for this. This dude morphs the entire wall, fragmenting it into a honeycomb pattern. The objective, total annihilation. Screaming detonate. Dale unleashes the wall's power, causing it to obliterate itself. It goes off point blank right in Sophia's face. As the ice vanishes, our boy is confident he just landed. A fight-ending blow. He had reinforced the ice wall's density and then triggered a forced explosion outwards. It's a combo that's almost impossible for anyone to dodge or walk away from without a scratch. The dust clears and our MC's jaw hits the floor. He sees the horrifying image of his master's body completely torn apart. But then the real Sophia reveals herself from behind a frozen clone. She's totally unharmed. Dale breathes a massive sigh of relief. Bruh, for a hot second, he genuinely thought he had just unalived his own teacher. Turns out Sophia had cast a perfect illusion. First, she praises him for his creative use of magic, admitting that even with her quick defense, Sophia still ended up with a scratch on her face. It's insane to think that a mere kid who only knows first circle magic was able to actually land a hit on a tower master. Dale apologizes for hurting her, but she looks genuinely ecstatic. She's thrilled he managed to scratch her, because it shows Dale was giving it his all and trusted her enough to handle it. Wiping the blood from her cheek, she calls him an outstanding student. She's completely mind-blown that he just whipped up a god-tier spell formula out of nowhere, but Dale gives her all the props. What's actually hilarious, no cap, is that Sophia's all smiles now, but in the next scene she's about to enter her full-blown sad girl era. Even the Duke takes one look at her and is like, yo, what the hell, where did you get that scratch? Sophia just says she got careless and let an attack slip through, and Duke Saxon Loki respects her for taking the pain like a champ. But Sophia secretly lives for leveling up Dale's skills, so when the Duke has another request, she's totally on board. He explains that a pack of orcs has taken over the mountain range, and honestly, it's a pretty standard monster mob. What's wild is that this man is about to send his kid, who's barely 10 years old, straight into a war zone. Sophia immediately calls this out, saying the boy isn't even close to being ready for a real mission. But Dale's father promises her the kid won't be anywhere near the front lines. Their primary mission is to protect their turf as part of House Saxon, and with some serious dark energy, the Duke is going to make sure his son understands. His responsibilities, that is. A clueless Sophia just asks what she's supposed to do. Turns out Dale is about to get his hands on a seriously trusted artifact for this job, and it's going to need Sophia's expert guidance so he doesn't mess it up. Okay, so let's break down what these artifacts are. Think of them as items juiced up with magic, which you can activate by pouring in mana or, using your own body as a battery. Usually the most OP artifacts are also the most dangerous and can straight up get you killed. House Saxon is sitting on a mountain of these bad boys in their personal vault, and Dale's getting the VIP tour since he's the Duke's heir. As the guy who's about to jump into the fight, this is all new information for Dale, and he is absolutely buzzing to finally get some real combat experience under his belt. Duke Saxon lays out their mission: wipe out the entire orc horde with a special team. But before Dale can go, he needs to master the power of darkness. In front of him are 3 incredibly powerful artifacts on display from the Saxon family's collection of items they jacked from the Demon King after taking over his domain. These things are built different way beyond the power of normal artifacts. You can tell by the insane mana just pouring off them. The Duke makes it clear they're ridiculously powerful, which also makes them super dangerous. It's crucial for Dale to get full control before he even thinks of using one. Speaking of Dale, the kid just says bet and dips on his dad. The Duke is just standing there looking lost, while his son is already off hunting for an artifact that matches his energy. A pretty sus artifact starts calling out to him, sensing the kid's deep-seated need to get revenge on his enemies. This murderous thing and a bunch of others start whispering to him, trying to seduce him with their power. Dale realizes that these artifacts can sense the Hansung blood flowing through his veins. Still, he knows he can't just pick one based on a vibe check. He's looking for something with even more raw power. That's when a particular item catches his eye. It's a cloak called the Shadow Cloak, and it's got some serious history going back to the time of Hansung. One of the Demon King's top generals used this S-tier artifact, which had the cracked ability to literally bring shadows to life. This power made him an absolute menace to fight against. Totally fascinated, the young master immediately throws it on, just as Sophia and his dad see him and scream his name. The second he put it on the cloak, suddenly swallows him whole, pulling him into another dimension. He could instantly feel its emotions, a bottomless gnawing hunger. The cloak's last master could create a freaking tornado of shadows whenever he wanted, bending darkness itself. But to tap into that kind of power, Dale first needs to defeat the creature living inside the artifact and completely dominate it. The dark entity starts spawning shadowy monsters trying to overwhelm the young boy. Dale is in some serious trouble, and the worst part, no one from the outside can do a thing to help him. It's pretty much like his own personal domain expansion in there. Sophia's panic is growing, while the Duke nervously admits that if this keeps up, his son might get straight up eaten by the entity. Things are looking bad, so the Duke gets ready to step in and drag him out by force. But they're both left speechless when a blinding light explodes from the barrier and Dale walks out completely fine. He's now rocking some sick new drip. The Blue Tower Master rushes over to check on him, and by some miracle nothing's wrong. And that's the very thing that's terrifying his father. Duke Saxon can't even process how a small kid his age managed to survive the immense pressure of such a powerful artifact. Now curious, the young master asks his father a question. Giddy with excitement, he begs to try on all the other artifacts too, which is basically his way of saying he's ready for more. Bruh, he wants to tame every single one. This absolutely insane request has them both shook, but surprisingly, the Duke just goes along with it. And just like that, our MC gets the all-access pass to test drive every single legendary artifact locked away in the family vault. With absolutely zero breaks, the young master stays on his training grind day in and day out. Helmet is absolutely floored when he spots the kid casually rocking the legendary Shadow Cloak. Our boy confirms it, but Helmet's brain is short-circuiting trying to figure out how a little kid is somehow taming the cloak. Dale explains that aside from a weird tingling feeling every now and then, he's not having any problems with it. He insists he's got it on lock, figuring the cloak just hasn't had a worthy owner in a long time. That's probably why it's so drawn to him. While most people are scared of the shadowy creature, our boy is basically trying to talk it into becoming his new bestie. He's hitting it with that talk no jutsu, and Helmet thinks he's a total psycho for calling a creature of darkness lonely. In a hilarious move, Dale literally steps on his so-called new friend, immediately checking the creature's ego. Then he says there's something he's been wanting to ask. Dale just straight up asks for a real sparring match to test his skills. The sword master, who's been itching for a good fight, gets hyped and draws his massive sword. He's totally ready to give the kid the serious fight he's asking for. Meanwhile, our boy is quickly realizing he might have messed up big time because, well, going up against one of the greatest swordsmen of the era is no joke. The guy tells him not to be afraid, but come on, anyone would be absolutely terrified in his shoes right now. The good news is, Helmet plans on using only basic swordsmanship, giving the young master a pretty big handicap. Dale knows that knights fight with honor. His main goal here isn't to actually win, but to see what his new cloak is truly capable of. Tapping into its dark energy, Dale summons shadow creatures to test out one of the artifact's key abilities. He unleashes an ability called Shadow Blade Rush, sending a swarm of dark tendrils flying straight at the powerful knight. But the knight just completely obliterates all of them with a single casual swing of his sword. That crazy flex is enough to stun our boy, but Helmet actually compliments him on the move. Then he instantly bolts forward to go on the attack, closing the distance and getting right in the kid's face in less than a second. Thinking fast, the young master blankets the ground beneath them in shadows, trying to trap the knight. Spikes erupt from that same shadowy ground, aiming to catch him completely off guard. The knight clearly didn't see that coming, but just like last time, the man is built different, and just shatters the entire trap using nothing but raw strength. Backed into a corner, Dale tries to use another interesting ability to block Helmet's assault. The knight is low-key impressed, since the force he just put into that swing would have shattered any normal weapon into a million pieces. This whole fight is really showing him just how cracked the special abilities of a top-grade artifact are. Now that he's intrigued, Helmet is ready for at least 10 more rounds just like that. And so, the battle between the young master and his hero rages on. All the while, the rest of the Black Cavalry just watches on their minds completely blown, because in all their duels with Helmet, and not a single one of them could ever take even 10 hits from their captain. It feels like they're getting totally outclassed by a literal 10-year-old. More time passes and finally, the night of the mission arrives. Right before they leave, Lady Elena finds her son clearly worried and tries her best to convince him not to participate. But our MC reassures his mom that it'll be chill since Helmet will be there to protect him. The worried mother just can't stand the thought of her little boy getting hurt. Dale promises her that he needs to get stronger if he's ever going to take over and lead the dukedom like his father does. He explains that he needs to put in the work now so that when things get tough, he'll be strong enough to protect his family. He just asks his mother to have a little faith in him and to let him shoulder this new responsibility. The boy's earnest plea is enough to melt her heart, and she gives him her full permission, watching as he mounts his horse. The scene then cuts over to their temporary base. Helmet has his troops all geared up and ready to move out. Turns out the boy's father is there too. Out of nowhere, the Duke tells Dale to give the command for the cavalry to march. The young master is super confused until his dad explains why. The Duke tells him that this very cavalry will be under his command someday, and that from this moment on they are his knights. This is a major turning point for him. He's no longer leading as the hero Han Sung from his past life. Now he is Dale, the leader of the Black Cavalry, and he's not going to let history repeat itself. Stepping into his new role, our boy addresses his courageous warriors. With his hand shot up towards the sky, he bellows the order for House Saxon to advance, and just like that, the troops start moving. We're talking 250 men deployed for this operation. They're rolling out with the elite ranger unit, and their mission is simple: take out nearly 1,000 orcs. These monsters have already made it over the mountains and are booking it to the river to get away from the cold, so the Black Cavalry is planning to hit them first. The plan is to cross the river downstream and set up a nasty surprise for the orcs. The only problem, of course, is the river itself. It's super deep and overflowing, so there's no way 250 soldiers are just going to wade across. This is where the stunning blue elf Sophia steps in with her ice magic. She's about to create an entire bridge made of solid ice. Dale is low-key hyped to see her on this mission with them, especially since she's usually a pacifist. Her water magic forges a path right in front of them. This lets the entire squad cross the river without a problem. But that's all she's here for. She wishes them luck and heads out. Dale gives her a quick goodbye too. But the second he's gone, Sophia is just struck by him. She's seriously worried about her student and his safety out here. Anyway, let's jump over to the orc encampment. Our boys have already gotten into position, knocking flaming arrows to kick off their ambush. The first volley of arrows flies, catching the orcs completely off guard and dropping dozens of them in an instant. The ones left standing are absolutely furious, and Helmet screams at his first 3 battalions to get into formation. They form a wedge and lead the charge while the commander watches from a high vantage point, asking Dale what he thinks of the situation. Our super analytical MC points out that the horses are galloping at nearly 40 kilometers an hour. The formation they're using is the classic lance formation, but it's amped up by each knight's powerful aura, creating an attack so devastating that the orcs have literally zero chance of survival. Even Dale has to admit this whole fight is completely one-sided. It's a total stomp in their favor. While the Duke smirks, saying their cavalry is no joke, Helmet tells the kid not to get cocky. He reminds him they haven't won yet. In fact, this was just the warm-up. Reacting to the Knights' classic call formation, the orcs pull off a pro-gamer move and form their own wedge using shields to block the charge. The head knight admits that this first ambush isn't going to be enough to wipe them all out. The smart move here is to pull back, regroup, and hit them with a second charge until most of the orcs are dead. He fires a signal flare into the sky. That's the cue for the Knights to retreat. The same guys who were just tearing through the orc lines a second ago suddenly turn tail and run, which leaves the monsters completely stunned. Trying to take advantage of the chaos, the orcs start chucking spears at the retreating knights. And unfortunately for them, their aim is a little too on point because a single spear takes down a poor horse in one shot. You need to pay attention here, because this is a huge moment for Dale, who is visibly shook watching one of his allies go down. The veteran soldiers behind him have already written the guy off as dead, even if he's only hurt. That defenseless knight is a sitting duck on the battlefield, as a massive orc closes in to finish the job. Dale is getting pissed. The young master gives the adults a death glare, basically asking why they aren't doing anything. The 2 men just stay silent. They know they don't have a good answer. Right now, that knight is about to get turned into paste, and Dale's horse isn't fast enough to get there in time. So, instead he looks inward, planning to use one of his abilities to snipe the orc from a distance. The problem is, your average orc has skin like a tank, making its defense super tough. For this to work, Dale needs to tweak the ice bolt formula. He gets a wild idea, taking inspiration from a bullet. He also calculates the perfect angle and trajectory needed to land his new custom-made weapon. With all the basics figured out, our genius kid molds the ice bolt into a projectile straight up inspired by a Barrett M98B sniper rifle. Pointing his finger at the monster like a gun barrel, he fires a shot that's so ridiculously fast it pierces clean through the orc's side. The beast is seriously injured from the clean hit. The Duke is absolutely fascinated, and Helmet is blown away by Dale's perfect aim. Seeing his chance, Dale charges straight into the fray. The Duke doesn't even try to stop his kid. In fact, his face is just filled with pride. He can't believe his son just invented a unique magic formula that packs such an insane punch. It's proof that Dale's inner magical world is almost complete. As our boy rushes onto the battlefield, he notices the orcs are moving in a weird pattern. They're already regrouping for a counterattack. Dale wants to save the knight, but now he's got two major problems to deal with. Model. The first part's a cakewalk, but his OG combat formula, it's way too clunky to actually use in a fight. He points out how even basic math equations get simplified to make life easier. So, Dale's thinking, why not do the same for his magic? This time, he's taking a page from the Ice 98 Magnum's book. It's not quite a Barrett, and Loki still looks a bit long, but our devious young master is hyped to give it a test run, busting out his ice magic once more. He lines up the shot and just completely deletes the orc's head with a nasty ice bullet. That thing was dead before it hit the floor. Meanwhile, the knight he just saved is stumbling around, totally shook, wondering why the heck the young master would put his own neck on the line like that. Dale hops down and tells the guy to chill, letting him know he's got his back. He makes it clear he's not the kind of leader who'd just leave his people hanging. No cap, that's a massive middle finger to his dad and Yunkle's whole philosophy. But talk is cheap, and he better back it up, because two more of these ugly monsters are closing in fast. Instead of going with ice again, our boy switches it up and calls on the shadows flooding the area with pure darkness and slicing energy. This move is called Shadow Blade, and it basically shreds everything in its zone, kinda giving off malevolent shrine vibes from Sukuna. Heads are literally flying, as this shadowy entity just starts feasting on their bodies. I'm not kidding, this thing munches them down like they're a bucket of fried chicken, leaving nothing but bones. The last orc is just frozen watching in pure terror. It knows it's absolutely cooked. Dale just smirks at its pathetic attempt at bravery, before ending it with another ice bullet. And just like that, the monster problem is handled. But plot twist, the knight he saved has busted legs and can't even stand up. I've got a bad feeling this dude's getting his pink slip the moment they get back. Our boy doesn't care though, he just scoops him up princess style, and makes it back to safety looking like a total hero. Commander Helmet is absolutely buzzing to lead the main assault, now that their young master is back. Seeing their young master pull off that insane rescue has the House Saxon forces more fired up than ever. Next thing we know, they've basically wiped out the entire orc army off-screen. Mission accomplished, but now the Duke needs a private word with his son. With zero chill, he asks his son why he just yeeted himself into battle like that. The Duke looks more pissed than we've ever seen him. It finally clicks for our young master that his dad is actually chewing him out. But Dale, full of confidence, just throws his dad's own words back at him. He points out that his dad once said he'd lead the cavalry someday, and his actions were just him living up to that promise. The Duke isn't buying that weak excuse for a second. This is a real wake-up call for the young master, because he knows his father genuinely cares for his soldiers. Dale's like, wait a minute, and claps back, asking his father why he just stood there and let his own men die. The Duke lays it out. The knights who charge into a fight aren't looking for a savior. He says they know the job is dangerous, but Dale argues that he still should have tried to help the guy out. This makes the Duke snap, telling him that by saving one person, he just created a dangerous expectation for everyone else. Now all the other knights might start thinking someone will swoop in to save them too. That's a logic bomb that just completely shatters Dale's worldview. And low-key, it makes perfect sense. The Duke then asks him how many knights does he really think he can save. Dale is left completely speechless as Duke Saxon reminds him that these knights trained their whole lives for this duty. The Duke says he won't step in unless he sees them pushed to their absolute breaking point. It's his way of showing respect for their commitment and their skill. And damn, his dad is dropping some hard truths that our young master just has no answer for. This is a lesson Hansung learned in his past life, but somewhere along the way, he completely forgot it. But after laying into him, the Duke switches gears and softens up. He tells Dale he's proud of his fighting spirit and wants to help him hone that edge for the fights to come. With that conversation wrapped up, the mission is officially a success and the whole crew heads back to the castle. It doesn't take long for the story of a young noble charging into battle to save a single knight to spread like wildfire. But of course, the story starts getting blown way out of proportion. Like suddenly, the rumor is that Dale single-handedly took down 1,000 orcs. The dude can't even walk around without cringing at the gossip. But hey, at least it's making the people in his territory happy. Life moves on, and Dale gets back to his training grind. Back in the training arena, the knights spot him and start hyping him up, which only makes him more embarrassed. Commander Helmet just laughs and tells him to soak it in. They all raise their fists pumped about getting even stronger together. Dale's actually pretty happy seeing their gung-ho attitude, but then a maid shows up out of nowhere to announce they have visitors. Back at House Orhart, our boy gives his thanks, getting hyped to meet a very special guest. Let's get the rundown on House Orhart. We're talking about a seriously respected family, founded by the legendary patriarch Bardell, also known as the Divine Sword. But right when the Unification War popped off Bardell and his whole house got completely wiped out, Dale clocks his uncle's super somber expression. Turns out the Divine Sword himself had mentored his uncle, guiding him onto the knight's path as they strolled toward the throne room. Our young master totally gets why his uncle is feeling some type of way. Meanwhile, the Duke is gassing his son up for training so hard. As the butler announces the guest's arrival, a blonde lady and her daughter stride in with major main character energy, not a single servant in sight. Vanessa Orhart gives the Duke a respectful greeting, but her little brat of a daughter is looking mega pissed for some reason. Seriously, someone get this kid a medieval Snickers, cause her attitude is way off. Charlotte then proceeds to cause the most cringe scene you can imagine, disrespecting the Duke by asking why her mom would ever bow to these people. Bruh, it's the absolute peak of disrespect, but Duke Saxon has zero chill and just lets it slide. Instead, he asks his son to give Charlotte a tour of the castle, a job our MC is actually happy to take on. Our sweet boy offers his hand like a gentleman. But this little blonde Karen in training is so full of rage she just smacks his hand away. No cap, she hit it so hard that Dale's palm instantly swells up bright red. Duke Saxon is livid. Lady Elena is horrified, and that "oh crap" realization finally hits Charlotte's face. But instead of backing down, this kid doubles down, calling them a bunch of shameless nobles, and basically speedrunning her own social execution. Vanessa completely loses it, yelling at her daughter to apologize like right now. But Charlotte just storms out in a huff, leaving Vanessa in a super humiliating spot as she tries to do damage control for her daughter's epic meltdown. Lady Elena asks what could possibly make her act like that. Well, it turns out to be a guy named Count Brandenburg. And yup, it's the exact same dude who completely screwed over Hansong, and he was just assigned to their territory. This guy is publicly known as the Holy Knight of the Empire, so you can't avoid hearing about him. But a lot of people also have a nickname for him, the Pig King, because this creep is dead set on making a baby with a highly skilled swordswoman. All this just to create his idea of a perfect heir. And right now the bastard's got his sights set on Charlotte, even though she's literally just a kid. Bro is a walking red flag, a total PDF file. Vanessa even points out how this unholy knight already tried to get his hands on her once before. The little girl is understandably completely traumatized. And even though Vanessa wants to protect her daughter, there isn't much she can do since their family was completely destroyed. So, now she's a fallen noble, and she's actually here today to officially beg Duke Saxon for a favor. She wants him to let her become a maid for his house, just so that filthy Brandenburg can't lay a finger on her daughter. Outside on the training grounds, Dale finds Charlotte looking super worked up. He approaches her without a trace of rudeness. His chill vibe actually helps her cool off a little, and she even asks if his hand is okay. Dale's just thinking to himself that he's dealing with a child, but then she whips out her sword in a flash and aims the blade right at him. She orders Dale to fight her, and this sudden demand totally catches our boy off guard. He's just now realizing this kid has absolutely no filter and just does whatever she wants. Our young master doesn't really have a reason to fight, but this young lady has clearly heard all the rumors. She knows about the kid who saved a princess knight and soloed 1,000 orcs on the battlefield. She's looking for a win against a powerhouse like him so she can be known as the strongest in the empire. This way she can show the world her family doesn't need any help from that disgusting Count Brandenburg. The second our boy hears that name, his whole expression shifts to pure rage. There's no way he could forget that bastard. That's the same guy who betrayed him and ended his previous life. It's crystal clear that this girl despises their common enemy, which means there's a solid chance they could become allies. Before they team up though, our boy decides he needs to serve her a heaping slice of reality. He goes over and picks up a short blade from a barrel. He then mocks Charlotte for being just a kid, and that insult is all it takes to rile her up to the point where she's ready to go all out against him. Looking absolutely fierce, Charlotte blitzes forward with incredible speed, but her sword is easily blocked by our MC. She starts stabbing at him relentlessly, using every last ounce of her strength, while Dale just barely pretends to be struggling. He's actually just analyzing her fighting style. She's got great deflection skills and a sharp wrist that allows for some insane reflexes. She's so impressive that a trail of aura is literally flowing off her. Charlotte is fighting with a rapier. That's way bigger than her body should be able to handle, but it's her aura that lets her wield it so fast. It's like how a mage generates mana by cycling it around their heart. But knights are built different, you see. They use their aura to basically supercharge their physical stats. Right now, Charlotte is trying to do exactly that, attempting to just bulldoze him with pure power, and her raw talent is blindingly obvious. She even pulls off a sharp feint that stuns Dale even though he technically dodged it. The brawl rages on and the bratty Young girl is dead set on her victory, but let's rewind a bit and check out her backstory starting from right after she was born. Her father had already passed away, so her mother Vanessa would constantly tell her bedtime stories about his legendary accomplishments. She was determined to shape her into the proud daughter of the almighty divine sword. So, Charlotte started grinding relentlessly from a super young age, and even when her family's fortune crumbled, she absolutely refused to quit. But despite her unbreakable will and fierce determination, she's getting completely shut down by the boy in front of her. Dale's flawless defense is like a personal insult to her pride. It gets to her so much that she overextends and makes a critical error. Capitalizing on the opening, our young master disarms her, sending her weapon spiraling into the air. As the fight concludes, the mighty daughter of the divine sword suffers her very first loss. She's left weeping, unable to even comprehend how it happened, while Dale drops an important life lesson on her. Charlotte's biggest mistake, he explains, is that she's clinging too hard to her father's identity. Dale gives her the brutal reality check she needs. He drives the point home by telling her just how weak her current power level is. No cap, he says. Count Brandenburg is leagues stronger than the version of Dale she just faced. Utterly defeated and lost, Charlotte begs him to tell her what to do now. It's at this moment Dale introduces himself as the protector of House Orhart, promising the young lady that House Saxon will shield her until she's finally strong enough to take down Brandenburg on her own. A confused Charlotte asks why he'd go so far for her, but our young master just says she's an investment worth making. The only condition is that she must swear loyalty to his house. Wiping the tears from her eyes, she accepts his terms and kneels before him. She vows to serve him as his knight, and even though it comes off as a naive and childish promise, Adele could sense the overwhelming conviction behind her words and totally understood her. Afterwards, our boy went to see his dad. He needed to formally report that Charlotte was being brought on as a new maid. The Duke is stunned to see how the girl's entire vibe has changed. Dale simply explains that the two of them made a pact with each other, a solemn vow to protect House Orhart. This news seems to annoy the Duke, who asks if Dale used their family name just out of pity. Our MC immediately shoots down that idea and reveals his true endgame. He wants to absorb the talent and legacy of the divine sword into their own family. He believes that oath is the key to forging a new divine sword, one that will become an insane asset for their family in the future. Totally impressed by this power move, the Duke praises his son. Dale's just happy he's secured a new powerful ally, and he knows this whole situation is going to hit Count Brandenburg's ego where it hurts. Speaking of that scumbag, he's over in Malberg, absolutely losing his mind after hearing what happened. The news of the girl's new allegiance has the unholy knight fuming that his worthless minions couldn't manage to capture a single girl. Turns out even the assassins he hired got taken out. His men were apparently eliminated before they even stepped foot on House Saxon's land. This can only mean one thing: Charlotte must have killed them. Enraged, Count Brandenburg grabs his sword, and as he holds it, he relives the sick, joyful, a memory of betraying Hansung on the battlefield. Like a true psycho, this man is literally horny for his weapon. He's out here calling it his fiancée and all that. The dude's got a seriously unhinged obsession with his sword, and making sure it gets inherited by a competent heir. Count Brandenburg orders his servant to get in touch with the Thieves' Guild, planning to send even more muscle to House Saxon's turf. He's ready to pay them a fortune just to get his hands on Charlotte. 1 week passes. Since Charlotte swore her loyalty, she's been training like a beast to qualify as a proper maid. She's also been sparring with our boy to level up her combat skills. Helmet the Swordmaster is watching as they face off again. This time, Dale's on the offensive, with a short sword pushing her into a desperate flurry of deflections. The Swordmaster sees she's being overwhelmed, but he never dreamed a duel this ferocious could happen. In between two kids. They might not be on the level of actual knights yet, but their raw killing intent paired with their lightning-fast reflexes is on a whole other level. The young master suddenly grabs his cloak and uses it to obscure his weapon. It's a clever move, and it completely catches Charlotte by surprise. She legit tries to stab him, but Helmet jumps in and shuts the whole thing down, even though the knight gives the little girl props for her spirit. But she's got no time for empty praise and demands some real feedback, so Helmet kicks things off by asking her a question. He wants to know if the young lady even understands the core principle of her weapon, because so far she's just been using it as a pointy stick. In reality, the true power of her weapon comes from some seriously slick footwork, which is the key thing about Dale. He was dodging her attacks and closing the distance at the same time, and the second she felt the pressure mounting on her, she got overwhelmed. Charlotte really should have backed off to create more space, because the big issue with a rapier's defense is that it loses its accuracy real quick up close. From the looks of it, Helmet drops the bad news that Charlotte's going to have to completely overhaul her fighting style from the ground up. Her posture, her form, it's all just a giant welcome mat for attacks. The girl gets pouty, admitting she's never had a real teacher. So there was literally no one around to point out her bad habits. Helmet even roasts her a bit, calling her technique a weird poking dance. Charlotte is absolutely mortified while he's just laughing, telling her he's only messing around. Meanwhile, our boy is wondering what her glow-up is going to look like. I mean, getting coached by one of the greatest swordmasters in history, he thinks it's totally possible. He's low-key worried that Charlotte might actually smoke him at some point down the line. In the next scene, we switch gears and dive deep into his magic training. Dale gets that building. More mana circles follows the same logic, but there's a huge catch. It takes an insane amount of time. We're talking a decades-long grind just to level up. But here's the kicker. Sophia finds out that this prodigy has already unlocked his second circle. In this world, mana circles get measured by RPM. That's rotations per minute. Your average mage is putting out around 300 RPM, but our MC is built different. His first circle alone was cranking out 2,000 revolutions per minute, and his second is already hitting 400. A new circle needs at least 300 to even start. This means Dale has already cleared the requirements to start working on his third circle. Hyped to test out a new theory, now that he's hit the second circle, the young master decides to cook up his ice bullet technique. First, he juices its power by making it way harder, then he lines up a shot on a nearby tree. He amps up the bullet's rotation to give it some insane speed. And bam! The world's first armor-piercing round gets fired with so much raw power that it completely vaporizes the tree. Even the young master is stunned by his own power-up, noticing how much easier it was to control the spell this time. His teacher Sophia is bursting with pride over his talent, but Dale, being a humble king, gives her all the credit for her amazing guidance. She can't help but think about what an enigma this genius kid is always using his immense power for good. His strength is kinda terrifying, not gonna lie, but at the end of the day, Sophia trusts him on a soul-deep level, pulling him in for a hug like her proudest student. Dale is totally caught off guard and finds the whole thing super awkward, especially since he was a full-grown man in his past life. Later on, my dude finds himself getting a little flustered thinking about his teacher, and even starts to wonder, does Sophia really see him as just a kid bruh that is literally the only logical explanation? Shaking off those cringe thoughts, he tries to refocus. The young master gets back to the grind. My guy channels his inner Sung Jin Woo, yelling "Arise" to summon a massive wall of ice. Next, he tests its durability by unloading a shotgun-style barrage of ice bullets at it. Every single bullet ricochets right off the wall and comes flying back at Dale, forcing him to pop a barrier to defend himself. He starts thinking maybe he should try a slug shot next time, when suddenly Charlotte just materializes out of the woods. Turns out she's been trying to find him, and just started practicing that fancy footwork Helmet showed her. The young master can tell she's having a blast learning the sword, but that's not actually why Charlotte came looking for him. With her face all red, she starts apologizing for how rude she was before saying she's had some time to think. And she finally realized what a total brat she was acting like. Instead of just letting it slide, our boy hits her with zero chill and straight up agrees, "Yep, you were being a rude brat," completely crushing her ego. But right after he forgives her and asks her to just treat him normally like she used to. A little bit later, they're just chilling together, and Charlotte is passionately talking about how awesome the cool weather feels. She absolutely loves feeling the wind while she's training. Our boy is genuinely happy. He's finally found someone else who gets it. Hilariously, his parents are in the background already shipping them. Watching the two of them, Lady Elena decides she's going to keep a close watch and play wing mom to help Dale figure out his own feelings. Alright, fast forward to the outskirts of the dukedom, where Elena is giving her son a real-world lesson on what it means to help those less fortunate. It's a weekly ritual for her, handing out food to the poor and hooking them up with jobs. Starting this year, Dale and Charlotte have been tagging along when suddenly Charlotte spots a little boy sobbing and begging for help. Apparently, the kid's mom is in deep trouble, and he's desperately pleading with Charlotte to save her. The vibes are way off, and our boy Dale knows it. He can smell a setup from a mile away, especially since they don't have a single night with them for protection. Plus, this alleyway is super sketchy. The biggest red flag is that the kid refused to get help from any other adult. Instead, he made a beeline straight for Charlotte. As Dale scans the area, his suspicions are confirmed. He spots a dude from the Thieves Guild just chilling on a rooftop. In that instant, Dale puts it all together. No cap, they've been cornered by Brandenburg's goons. The kid who was just putting on an Oscar-worthy performance suddenly says he's gotta go find his mom, then dips. Seconds later, a whole crew of shady dudes materializes. They could care less about Dale. Their one and only goal is to snatch Charlotte. But our boy wants all the smoke. While this grimy green-haired loser threatens his life, Dale doesn't even flinch. The young master calmly states he made a promise to protect the Orhart family's daughter, especially from bottom-feeding trash like them. Their leader just scoffs at his heroic act and tells his men to teach this arrogant kid a lesson he won't forget. They think Dale needs a serious reality check, a lesson taught with pain. Charlotte can feel the danger closing in. It's not helping that she doesn't even have her sword on her, but the young master just tells her to chill. He's got the whole situation on lock. In fact, this is the perfect chance for him to test drive the newest technique he unlocked with his top-grade artifact. 2 thugs lunge from the front and 2 more from behind, but before they can even get close. Eerie black tendrils erupt from the ground, wrapping around their bodies. They try slashing at the shadows, but Dale just watches them struggle, totally unfazed. The thug leader is the only one smart enough to see what's happening, screaming at his idiotic men to dodge instead of attack. Dale's low-key impressed by the guy's quick thinking. They try to scramble away, but it's too late for the one dude who tried to hack through the shadow. He gets ruthlessly annihilated. This is the brand new technique Dale got after hitting the second circle. It lets him create parasitic shadows that wrap around his enemies, moving on their own, and even invading their bodies. The poor schmuck who got caught is literally being devoured from the inside out, his soul sucked dry until he's reborn as a monster of darkness. This thing is 10 times scarier than Wolverine, and has the build of the Hulk. If I were these guys, I'd be handing in my 2 weeks' notice right now. The newly made undead monster is starving, and its former buddies are freaking out. The leader just orders them to charge in and die. He figures even if Dale is the young master of the Saxon dukedom, one good stab should be enough to take him outright. So he charges straight at Dale, prancing around with his daggers like he's auditioning for a play. Bro thinks he's in an anime, tossing knives like they're supposed to be unstoppable. Dale just casually bats them aside. Then he blasts the guy with what's basically a magic shotgun, turning him into human Swiss cheese. Right now, Charlotte is just watching our boy absolutely dog walk these amateurs. His new undead pet is also just wrecking shop in the background, by the way. But that shotgun blast was a bit of an exaggeration. The leader didn't actually get turned into a cheese slice, thanks to his surprisingly thick protective aura. The dude still thinks he's got a shot, so he powers up for one last charge. The result? He gets the Gojo Satoru treatment instantly sliced into a dozen pieces. Dale walks over to his new pet, who's busy chowing down on a fresh corpse. He checks on Charlotte to see if she's alright, but notices one of the thugs actually survived the beatdown, while his buddies are now in pieces. While he's still making sure Charlotte's okay, Dale casually fires off an ice bullet that completely tears the survivor's leg off. Bruh is gonna need more than a wheelchair. The terrified thug starts singing like a canary, offering to spill everything he knows about their group's plans. But Dale is a cold-blooded killer. He puts a bullet in the guy's head without a second thought, showing he couldn't care less. Bro is handling business American style at this point. He explains to Charlotte that these guys are the enemies of their house. They're the ones behind all the recent terror attacks. He swears to her that he'll always be there to protect her, then asks if she's afraid. And while she admits she's scared, she's also incredibly happy that he fought so hard to keep her safe. She tells him that ever since they made that vow, she realized she wants to protect his family too. She wants to be strong enough to defend his house the exact same way he swore to defend. Charlotte's desire to get stronger for his sake hits different, and her words leave him completely speechless. So, the real tea on why our boy took her in, it's all tied to a messed up future that went down 24 years ago. Han Sung was there when her father died, but now he's trying to rewrite history by keeping her right by his side. Charlotte grabs his hand, and their bond instantly becomes way stronger than Dale ever imagined. Meanwhile, Count Berger over here, bruh is absolutely fuming that his plan completely failed. He's just gotten a personal letter straight from the Duke of Saxon. It's basically an invitation for a one-on-one talk with the guy, and the Duke's tone makes it super clear he knows what's been going on. He's on to all their scummy plans. Brandenburg gets that even with his title as the Divine Sword, he has absolutely zero power to turn down an offer like this. A few days go by and they pull up to the castle. Brandenburg is there, and his face looks more stressed out than ever before. Duke Saxon starts taunting him right away, giving a super sarcastic welcome to his home. The Holy Sword plays along, faking his politeness. He tells the Duke it's an honor to be there, but this clown is already seething inside just looking at Charlotte. And Dale the Holy Knight kicks things off by bringing up the recent kidnapping attempt, laughing the whole thing off. He acts like it's some kind of joke that stuff got so out of hand, even pretending he was framed in the whole ordeal. But the most OP necromancer of the age just responds with a crushing wave of dark energy. The sheer pressure is just overwhelming the Holy Knight and his soldiers. It's only because of his legendary sword that this dude manages to block the hit. But his men, they get instantly vaporized into nothing but dust, suffering the most brutal death imaginable. Brandenburg is completely floored by the insane level of the Duke's power. His face twists in terror, realizing he totally messed around and is now about to find out. Duke Saxon just used an S-tier dark magic spell. He just erased a squad of expert knights like it was nothing. The Holy Sword ditches all the formalities and straight up begs for his life. But the Duke isn't having it, and just orders him to get on his knees. Brandenburg desperately tries to reason with him. The Duke's just showing off how much power he's packing, but Dale's dad is absolutely livid and roars at him to get on his knees. He's not messing around either, ready to fire off another spell if the Count even thinks about disobeying. The sheer pressure radiating from the Duke is insane. It's so intense that it forces the so-called Holy Sword down to the ground. Even he didn't expect to get humbled this hard. He obediently kneels before the Duke, who tells him that this is his one and only shot to make things right. On top of that, he delivers a chilling warning. If the Holy Knight ever lays a finger on the Saxon children again, he will personally hunt down and eliminate every single member of his family. After that soul-crushing verbal beatdown, the Duke menacingly suggests Brandenburg should take a little rest, but the knight is desperate to leave. He says he's got urgent business to handle and needs to get out of the territory ASAP. The Duke just tells him to have a safe trip. And just like that, the pathetic knight makes his humiliating exit. Dale is grinning from ear to ear, absolutely loving that his dad finally put this arrogant jackass in his place. But this very moment is destined to kick off a massive butterfly effect that's about to spiral out of control. Things across the Empire always start small, but once that fire catches, everyone is going to get burned. Down the line, an older Dale will have to be the one to finally put this holy swordsman down. The news of the knight's public humiliation at the hands of the Duke of Noir is about to send shockwaves across the entire world. Dale's father then reveals a pile of bodies, all the poor souls who died fighting his son. Sophia is hit with a wave of pure horror when she sees the brutal aftermath of a child's rampage. The bodies were riddled with holes, their insides completely wrecked, and a seed of doubt plants itself in her mind. She starts to worry that her teachings might have accidentally forged a monster. The Noir Duke knows his son needs the right kind of guidance to keep him on the correct path. For that job, he officially names her as his chief advisor. In other words, she's not just some tutor anymore. She's getting a real position of power within House Saxon. Dale's potential now completely hinges on how well Sophia can guide and shape him. Even the Duke knows he can't raise his son perfectly on his own. It's only with her assistance that the kid will ever reach his true cracked potential. Sophia gets the weight of her new role, and this time, she plans to truly understand Dale's perspective, which will show her what she needs to do. Some more time flies by, and our young master hits the big 1-0. Last year's birthday party was wild, but this one is on another level, because some major nobles from the Emperor's inner circle decided to show up. The most important guest of all was a powerful figure named Marquis Eurus, who seemed incredibly interested in our boy. Let's rewind a few minutes. All the nobles were buzzing about how impressive House Saxon's party was. The heaviest hitters from the capital were all part of the Emperor's faction. These were the people pulling the strings on every major decision across the Empire. It was painfully obvious to our MC why these snakes decided to crash his birthday party. They were really here to give House Saxon a warning. It was a subtle message from the royals basically saying they were watching them and wouldn't forget what went down with Count Brandenburg. And the guy standing right in front of Dale, Marquis Urias, was handpicked to be the messenger. He's the one leading this whole undercover operation and casually introduces himself to the Duke's son. This guy, Lord Crimson, is actually the head of the Red Tower, famous for their overwhelming power. The whole tower's philosophy is based on dominating everything and everyone through sheer force. That's what turned them into such ruthless executioners who were dripping with ambition. In his previous life, Han Sung was actually tortured by the mages from this very tower. And now Marquis Eurus is standing here, greeting the child prodigy who's become the talk of the town. He even mentions the over-the-top rumors about the young master taking down 1,000 orcs by himself. Dale just takes the compliments with a polite smile and hopes the Marquis has a good time. Shortly after, he sneaks outside to catch his breath. As usual, my guy is a certified introvert who absolutely hates being swarmed by people. To be real, he's way more hyped about training than he is about celebrating. Plus, there's always the chance someone might expose his secret identity, especially with all these sketchy nobles already snooping around. Suddenly, the young master hears a woman's terrified scream. He can also hear some dude trying to force himself on a maid. Wasting no time, our boy sprints over to see what's going on. It turns out a poor maid from his own house is being assaulted by some fat pig who clearly can't take no for an answer. This scumbag then has the audacity to pull a knife on her, threatening to end her life. And of course, there's no one else around to help the poor girl. While everyone else is busy living it up at the party, Dale slides in at the perfect moment and catches this total creep in the act. The young master's sudden appearance completely spooks this red-headed pig. Our boy strolls right up to the smirking noble, who seriously has the nerve to offer the Duke's own son a learning experience. He wants to use the maid as a live demo to show the kid how adults get it on. Bruh Dale is absolutely livid. He points a finger right in the noble's face and tells his maid not to worry, he's about to handle this mess. Then he starts juicing up his magic circle with mana. The young master is well aware this world runs on a strict social ladder, so nobody would ever dream of him throwing the first punch. Dale lets an ice bullet fly, which just grazes the noble's cheek. It's just enough to scare the dude into falling flat on his butt. Despite the hierarchy, our boy isn't about to toss his morals out the window, even if it means putting his hands on a noble. This guy is supposed to be representing the emperor, and Dale just gave him a nice little souvenir scratch on his face. The noble immediately calls Dale out for his reckless stunt. But Dale has zero time to argue with a pig, so treating him like the animal he is, he commands the man to get on his knees. The noble actually tries to defy him, but our boy just roars the order again. Man, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Dale completely humiliates the noble, ordering him to kneel down and apologize directly to the maid. The scumbag is floored by the kid's audacity and tries to remind the young master that he's an official representative from the empire. He even disses the maid, calling her a lowborn and saying him kneeling would be an insult to the emperor. Dale corners him and hits back with some heavy sarcasm. He asks if the emperor also likes to mess around with women in his court. Oof, that remark is so savage. The noble absolutely loses it and starts screaming at Dale. Then out of nowhere, the Duke shows up with the other nobles. Lord Crimson is low-key entertained by the chaos and makes a snide comment just to push the Duke's buttons. This makes Dale's father erupt. He starts roaring at his son, but the young master calmly announces that this man assaulted a maid of House Saxon. What's really disappointing is that his own dad doesn't even back him up here. He actually sides with Lord Petro just to keep the peace. Dale, however, keeps threatening the snotty noble to stay put. It's pretty clear he doesn't give a damn about what his father says. Instead, the boy stands up to the Duke himself, exclaiming that their guests are supposed to act with some basic decency, especially if they're from the freaking royal court. But this red-headed creepshow broke all the rules to assault a maid, putting major disrespect on the name of House Saxon. That's why he couldn't just let this scumbag walk away. Hearing all this, Lord Crimson finally breaks his silence. He actually takes the young master's side, stating that it's shameful to harass a common maid. To punish Petro, Lord Urus ignites a flame and declares he's about to grill him alive. The pathetic bug makes a run for it, begging for mercy, but the master of the Red Magic Tower has absolutely zero chill. And his flames don't play favorites. They rush toward Petro, scorching his body as he writhes in agony. The noble is incinerated into nothing but a pile of ash. Meanwhile, Urus praises Dale for speaking the truth, saying it's the only way to get rid of the rats in the royal family. Lord Crimson is now seriously looking forward to Dale's future, which just goes to show how threatening this guy really is. This man's power is on a whole other level. After a while, the commotion died down, and the nobles from the royal court pieced out, and they finally left House Saxon. Time passed, and soon Eve came to wake the young master from his sleep. He thanked her for her help, but Eve got all flustered, and a sad look crossed her face. Dale asks her what's wrong, and the maid thanks him for his bravery. She feels genuinely grateful to be serving him. But there's definitely something else she's not saying, and our MC can see it clear as day, thanks to his experience from 2 different worlds. He can just tell when people are hiding something. Dale gives her a casual thanks, remembering that as the eldest son, he has to act with integrity at least as long as it supports his goal of completely crushing the empire. By the way, his father summoned him to his office immediately. He's starting to get weird vibes from Dale's recent behavior and is questioning his son's choices. In an effort to read his dad, Dale asks what's up. Then he drops a wild fun fact on him. He explains how the hero from the other world ended up dying right next to Bardell. If that hadn't happened, it was obvious that the next hero was supposed to have come from House Saxon. This info absolutely jolts his father, who tries to deny it. But Dale just fires back with total conviction, no cap. It suddenly hits him that he actually heard all about the Empire's shady plan against House Saxon way back in his past life. The Empire deliberately threw their hero Han Sung under the bus because they knew he'd be a massive problem if he ever switched sides. So, even though Han Sung absolutely crushed the Demon King and brought peace to the world, the Empire conveniently never bothered to wipe out the Demon King's domain. Nah, instead of cleaning up the mess, they started farming it like their own personal territory, and even had the audacity to ask the Saxon Duchy for sacrifices. They wanted cavalry to help their cause, and dangled the land in front of the Duke, promising his worries would be over. But that's a straight-up lie, especially since the evil in that land was never purified. And what's worse, the family's reputation got dragged through the mud, with people calling them the House of Darkness because of it. The Empire tossed their own hero aside, and no cap they're gearing up to do the same to House Saxon to get rid of any potential threats. Dale's sudden confession about the Empire's betrayal totally stuns his father, but he quickly plays it off like these are just his own wild guesses. But low-key, he's spitting straight facts from the life he already lived through. The history books are all wrong. Official records say the hero died fighting some divine sword, which makes the Duke's jaw hit the floor hearing his kid talk. That's because only a handful of people know the real story behind the hero's death. Dale pushes his theory saying, if he's right about this, then the Empire is 100% planning to screw them over down the line. They're basically a giant predator that slowly eats up weaker nations. Hearing this level of wisdom from a 10-year-old leaves his father completely speechless, so he turns to the boy for guidance. He asks his kid what their next move should be. Dale lays out a simple, cold truth: House Saxon can never ever work with the Empire. There's no coexisting, no making peace. The only real move is to destroy the Empire before it gets a chance to destroy them. Now that's a bombshell his old man was not ready for. Hearing those fighting words, the Duke's tone gets dead serious, questioning if his son truly gets the weight of what he's suggesting. But the young master clarifies that he isn't asking to raise an army and start a rebellion tomorrow. Instead, he's looking 10 years into the future. The Empire is already getting nervous about the number of resistance groups popping up. Then you've got vassals like the Duke who are already scared of getting backstabbed. On top of that, the economy is a dumpster fire. And with bandits on the rise, Dale predicts that in about a decade, there will be more than enough allies ready to join House Saxon. They could all team up in a massive effort to bring the entire empire crashing down. Dale spends hours breaking down every single detail of his plan for his dad. As the sun finally sets, he asks the Noir Duke for his honest opinion. At first, there's just stunned silence. Then his dad just starts laughing, a deep, genuine laugh, like a massive weight has been lifted. He admits he's beyond proud of his son's mind-blowing talent. It was crystal clear that his son saw the world from angles he never could. The Duke wanted to see the boy as way more than just his child. And right then and there, he officially declared the boy his one and only true heir, the one destined to lead House Saxon when he's gone. Dale feels a surge of pride himself. He's worked his butt off for this moment. The future where he could pull the strings of the entire house was finally in his grasp. The boy's father gave him a blank check, permission to say whatever was on his mind. This effectively gave him the power to shape the entire family's future. Dale knew he was now standing on equal footing with his pops. His very first order of business, a request to take on the Tower trial in Necropolis. And let's be real, this isn't some easy-peasy trial. It's a high-stakes game that ranks mages against each other. You fight the Guardians of the Magic Tower, and beating higher-level ones sends your rank skyrocketing. Keep climbing, and you could even earn the rank of an Elder of the Tower. The absolute beasts who make it to the very top are given the legendary title of Magic Tower Master. The Duke is cool with the idea, but he's also terrified for his son's life. That tower is a massive risk for anyone who tries it, and Dale hasn't even mastered his third circle yet, but the boy speaks with total confidence. He claims he's about to break through to the third circle any day now, a feat that usually takes mages until they're in their 20s. Even for a certified genius like Dale, it's a huge mountain to climb. But our MC is dead set on this path. He's doing it for the sake of his house. First, he'll conquer the Tower trial and prove to the whole world that he's absolutely cracked. This way, not a single person will be able to question his right to be the heir to the family. The Duke can't help but smile, realizing his son is a cunning strategist who wants to build an untouchable reputation. He puts his complete trust in Dale's judgment, which brings a massive joyful grin to our boy's face. A few days after their big talk, we finally arrive at the City of Death. Rolling up to the city, the Duke of Saxon steps out of his carriage, and everyone immediately bows down in respect. Right next to him is his kid Dale, who's low-key stressing knowing this trial is about to be a whole mess. The crowd's already gassing up the Duke's son, calling him the young master, with potential that's supposedly off the charts for the Empire. But not everyone's buying the hype. Some dudes are already throwing shade, doubting if he's got what it takes. They're straight up calling Dale's skills a joke, unable to believe this kid is anywhere near the level of the knights. Vilik, the Academy's top graduate, thinks he's built different, and is the clear favorite to win this whole trial. The Duke and his son get a formal welcome from Eris, an Elder of the Tower, who basically runs the show. With the Noir Duke absent, Dale's father tells our boy that she'll be the one looking out for him. During the trial, Dale tags along with Eris, and gets the scoop on the 59 other Academy graduates who are about to compete with him. Pulling back the curtain on the arena, she reveals the candidates who are going to be his competition. It's a straight-up coliseum absolutely packed with some seriously impressive-looking candidates. After that, Eris steps up to give a formal greeting to all the contestants. She's playing host, so it's her job to lay out the rules for the first part of the trial. First, she explains the life necklaces, revealing that this trial is going to be a massive battle royale. Life points are everything deciding who moves on and who goes home. The necklace itself will shield the wearer from a spell's full power. However, if a candidate gets tagged cleanly by an opponent's magic, the necklace will throw up a shield, which is just a fancy way of saying that person's been eliminated. Basically, land one good hit and your opponent is officially out of the tournament. The attacker who lands the strike snags a new point for their necklace. Anyone who collects 3 or more points advances to the next level of the tower. Finally, no artifacts can be used during the trial, which means our boy can't just cheese his way through it. By using his ridiculously powerful cloak, Dale mulls over the rules and has a realization. This is the perfect setup to filter out all the trash-tier contestants in the very first round. He glances to his side. A whole group of candidates are calling him a monster for reaching the 3rd circle at only 10 years old. They've already made him their main target. They're planning to take out the young master first, with some even mocking him and asking if it's okay to rough up a little kid. Since they're all in the same competition, they know they have to get rid of him to move forward. Dale just cracks a smile. Bruh is ready to catch all the smoke. The moment the trial starts, the guys closest to Dale immediately jump him. One contestant unleashes a dark spell and summons a corpse right in his face. The other candidates have the same idea, all using corpses to attack. A whole platoon of them is now ganging up on him. The young Master Dale just waits for the first strike as one of the zombies takes a swing at him with its sword. The attack shockingly gets completely deflected. It's all thanks to our boy's very own undead summon. And no cap, this thing is rocking some killer Wolverine-style claws. This creature is way bigger, and a whole lot fiercer than the others. Its aura radiates the water attribute, freezing all the surrounding monsters solid. It's in this exact moment that these losers finally get it. They're actually up against a dual elemental mage. Dale's monster slices through the frozen undead soldier, while one of his opponents tries a sneak attack from his blind spot. But Dale's undead just steps in and tanks the hit for him, all thanks to the thick ice armor on its back. It takes literally 0 damage. In retaliation, Dale's soldier smashes another monster with a single clean blow. The same dude who was talking all that smack earlier is now screaming that our boy is a cheater for using the water element. The so-called top graduate claims that only necromancy magic is supposed to be used in this fight. A super confident Dale fires back that there's not a single thing in the rules that stops him from powering up his monsters with different types of magic. So far, nobody's disqualified him, which pretty much means Eris has given his use of the water attribute the green light. Getting cornered by Fax, the loser and his crew send all 3 of their soldiers to rush Dale at once. With so many of them attacking, their plan is to just overwhelm the young master with pure numbers. Unluckily for them, Dale can't use a single artifact to get out of this jam. So, he weighs his options before the zombies can tear him limb from limb, forcing him to use his one and only final resort. Our boy just yeets himself into the fight, blowing past all 3 zombies and immediately lining up his next target with his sword. He easily dodges its first swing, but his blade gets stuck, so Dale just powers up his fist with some dark magic. He then hammers a massive punch into the creature's arm, which frees up his sword, so he can turn the monster into sashimi. The other candidates are just staring completely shook, as this little kid cuts up towering giants like they're nothing. Dale even used his magic to reinforce the bone sword, making it way more durable, and with this newly upgraded weapon in hand, he locks on to his next victim. The undead soldier smashes the ground, but completely whiffs, missing the young master, who leaps up for a killer aerial attack, giving it everything he's got. Dale absolutely shish kebabs the hell out of this guy. Bruh, you should have seen the look on the main punk's face, who's totally humiliated now that his minions are wiped out. With the soldiers gone, Dale easily zips over to the remaining candidates and starts handing out clean beatdowns to all of them. In the end, it's just the blonde punk left, cornered by a kid who isn't just a dual mage, but is also totally cracked with a sword. Our MC is straight up vibing, as he raises his sword just moments from ending him, and the dude actually starts begging for his life. But our boy has absolutely 0 chill, especially since he knows he can take him out without actually, killing him. Since it's a trial, the sword just smacks his head and leaves a nasty welt. And just like that, the arena is cleared. Dale single-handedly wiped the floor with every combatant, racking up a clean 60 life points all on his own for the audience. He wants them to watch his every move as he dominates this trial. On the second floor, the challenge is to defeat the guardian creatures. They're called flesh golems, and these things are nasty, towering over contestants with an incredibly durable build. Normally, at this stage, any survivors would team up to beat the boss on this floor. But there's one small problem. Our boy already eliminated all of them. So, now he's in a one-on-one fight against Gorlock the Destroyer, and the rules here are way different from the first stage. Our MC can finally go all out with every form of magic he has, though he still isn't allowed to use any artifacts. Not that it matters anyway. The golem is seconds away from smashing our boy into a pancake, but the young master has other ideas. He's planning to test the absolute limits of the third circle magic he just got. A massive punch from the golem obliterates the ground as it smirks, thinking it won. But that victory smirk turns to pure horror when it realizes its own hand is being consumed by eerie purplish flames. The golem is completely baffled as the 10-year-old young master unleashes his newest terrifying ability. It's called Accelerated Decay. Both the Duke and Heiress are floored by Dale's choice of spell, for instance. He could have easily just destroyed the golem's arm, but instead he's choosing to let it literally rot away. Thinking back on his past life, Dale remembers that when he was the hero, Hansung, his go-to strategy against monsters was what he called biochemical warfare. Before long, the massive creature has been reduced to a literal puddle of goo on the floor. The golem is completely done for. All it took was a single point of contact for that same biochemical warfare to kick in. This nasty little trick is now a core part of his black magic arsenal. Anyway, Dale ends up blitzing through the entire exam, clearing all 10 tiers and setting a brand new record. As a reward, he's actually given 4 whole days of rest before the 11th trial. As for the rest of the losers who entered the competition, they now have to go through a whole retrial procedure. 59 of the candidates get a chance to earn their spot back. Later that same night, Dale finds himself just staring at a fountain when his teacher Sophia suddenly appears out of nowhere. She's congratulating him for doing so damn well, and he gives her all the credit, a confession that makes her incredibly proud. But you gotta respect the absolute audacity of this kid. He freaking asks his own teacher out on a date. The elf is low-key flustered by our boy's riz. In reality, he just wanted to go to the city festival with her. Sophia agrees to his request, and he's totally celebrating. Her cheeks are bright pink from how he asked her out, and she's still wondering if this kid has any clue what a date even is. No cap bro is internally dying, laughing, knowing he totally messed with her head. So, it's off to the festival in the city of the dead. Sophia and Dale are taking a walk, and the young master seems totally fine, even after that absolute beast of a trial. He's definitely enjoying the 3 days of rest he earned. After walking in silence for a while, Dale and Sophia stop to appreciate the gorgeous full moon. By the way, saying the moon is beautiful in Japanese culture is a classic slick way of telling someone, "I love you." Anyway, the young master is struggling to strike up a conversation with his teacher. At the same time, though, he feels completely at ease. He has always felt safe with her, since she's the only one who ever trusted him. Right from the very beginning, some part of him has wanted to get closer to her. I don't know about you guys, but that just hits different. But bruh, things are about to take a wild turn. Before Dale could even break into his third circle, he was seriously reflecting on his master's advice. He had to face his own inner world, because the only way to get stronger was to push past the very limits of mana overflow. For his second circle, he learned that only by pushing through the agony of mana going wild could he finally tap into the power of the third. That whole experience left a huge scar on our boy. He never forgot the pain of betrayal, but suddenly he found himself somewhere new. He was transported to a completely empty, frozen white space. Hansung was finally seeing his true inner world during his meditation. It was a world of pure understanding, a place where he'd be forced to confront all his deepest fears. His inner self had always been hollow, a barren wasteland where no one could ever reach him but Sophia. She was the first person to ever truly vibe with him on a real level. No cap, he's basically calling her the guiding light in his darkness. Yeah, forget about those other MCs who take a million years to spit it out. This kid just dropped the bomb in a single chapter, and Sophia is seriously shook by what he's implying. But this boy doesn't back down. He doubles down, repeating his words and making it clear that he genuinely likes her in a big way. The elf just sees it as a cute sign of affection and gives him a hug, thinking it's just a student's admiration for their teacher. So, she returns that same innocent feeling, which is hilarious because our boy is internally cheesing about it. He's loving the life hacks his second chance at life is giving him. After a few more days, the rest period ended, and Dale, out of breath, showed up for the 11th trial. The funniest part is that this kid 100% meant it when he said he loves her. We're talking actual romantic feelings, and he's low-key pissed that she just brushed it off as some childish crush. Dale shoves his love life aside to deal with the trial where he's facing a one-on-one battle. This time, our young master's opponent is a third circle mage named Albert Rosenheim. And this dude has zero chill. He isn't planning on going easy on some kid. The best part, artifacts are totally allowed on this stage. Even complex mage strategies are fair game, and that safety necklace won't be saving anyone this time around. With all the restrictions gone, our boy is planning to absolutely curb stomp anyone who gets in his way. The duel kicks off, and Albert immediately sets off a point-blank explosion, telling the young master he's not dealing with a rookie. He's on a whole different level than the others Dale has faced. His follow-up move, the Dark Arrow Loki, reminds me of Gilgamesh's ultimate attack. You know, the Gate of Babylon from the Fate series. Anyway, our boy is completely fine, all thanks to that OP cloak of his. But those arrows could still be a major problem. Albert rains them down like a cluster bomb strike, completely wrecking the arena. Meanwhile, Dale is gracefully leaping out of the way, creating enough space to avoid getting hit. The thing is, this guy clearly cheated, launching his attack the very instant the duel began. But since neither Eris nor any other judge stepped in, it's pretty obvious they're letting it slide. They're way more interested in seeing just how powerful the young master really is, which is a big part of why he can't stand these mages. Albert is loving this power trip, acting like a budget Sung Jin Woo as he summons his own undead soldiers. Bruh is out here giving some edgy monologue like he just summoned a freaking shadow general, and even Dale is cringing hard at the announcement. But at the same time, this guy isn't playing around. His soldiers are crazy fast, cornering Dale with a barrage of attacks. Acting like some corny third-rate anime villain, Albert is getting a kick out of forcing Dale to just dodge without any chance to fight back. But our boy is built different. He picks the perfect moment to unleash a few of his own spells, taking out all three soldiers at once. Albert isn't impressed, and just mocks the kid for being weak, revealing he had a secret trap hidden inside his zombies, a spell called Death Explosion. Just like that, his soldiers erupt in a violent purple blast, sending the young master flying across the arena. This full-grown man starts gloating about his cringe-worthy win over a 10-year-old, but his celebration gets cut short. He realizes Dale has completely vanished. All he can hear is a voice echoing through the arena, calling him pathetic. Helpless Albert frantically looks around for him, but Dale has already slipped into the shadows. He reappears right behind him, commenting on how confused Albert looks, and even gives the third circle mage props for his sneaky move. It was a slick sneak attack, but Dale easily dodged it using his Wraith transformation. Our boy then declares with total confidence that a cheap trick like that will never be enough to defeat him. As for Albert, he's already tangled up in shadow vines that are itching to tear him apart. They're literally begging Dale for permission to devour the guy, while the young master just watches with a twisted smile as the darkness takes form. A massive entity with enormous gaping teeth materializes after getting the okay to eat, and everyone in the audience is absolutely horrified by the sight. The creature ensnares Albert with its vines, completely overwhelming his body until he's begging to be spared. Only after he's totally beaten is Albert finally granted his release. With him out cold, Dale is officially the winner of the duel and exits the arena, but his competitors are so damn terrified that they just surrender immediately. From round 3 on, Dale basically got free wins without having to fight at all. Every single one of them withdrew from their matches, except for one last fight. During the trial, the young master was busy honing his mastery over the 3 magic circles. By the time he hit tier 20, he finally met an opponent who was actually impressive. Say hello to the Headless Knight, the undead with the most intense aura on the entire planet. This creature is actually a creation of one of the tower's elders. It's a powerful being, totally different from anything our boy has ever faced. In fact, people are hyping it up as a challenger that not even the young master can defeat. Dale absolutely loves surprises and plot twists, so he's eager to see what's about to go down. His insane control over darkness intimidates everyone, and the same Headless Knight that was meant to challenge him is now kneeling down to serve its new master. Bro literally folded with zero pressure. The young master just watches the knight get tormented in its own mind as a sword twists in its chest, and the knight instantly takes its own life. The fight is already over. The knight literally couldn't stomach the thought of betraying its previous master, so it just ended its own life. Dale is enjoying this scene so much that he completely forgot about how everyone else was reacting. These people were just left totally speechless. They'd never seen a dark creature act that way before. This was all the proof they needed that the 10-year-old had strength, comparable to one of the tower's elders. Dale walks away with his head held high, having proven himself to everyone. While he's heading back, the rest of the crowd wonders what he'll do next. If he leaves now, that means he can't ascend any higher, but honestly, the young master has no desire to finish the trial at all. He already accomplished his goal, and going past this level would mean risking his neck against some terrifying monsters. So eventually the trial finally wrapped up. Upon his exit, Duke Saxon and his son were there with the people showing him the mages now treated the boy like an equal, and thanks to his dominating results, Dale's reputation began to unite the territories. Up in the north. In other parts of the dukedom, a knight is currently busy slaughtering monsters. The cavalry is fighting as hard as they can. Right after finishing the tower trial, Dale was given command of an orc extermination squad. Leading it was a complex duty, something way beyond a 10-year-old's abilities, but nobody doubted this kid. Not even once. They saw him as the rightful heir, the one who could reunite the North's strength. Bro was out here acting like Jon Snow or something. After the mission, Dale returns to his father, reporting that they took out nearly 150 orcs. As for their own casualties, there were none except for some minor injuries. The Duke is totally baffled and asks if the boy used magic to help them out, but Dale denies using any. Instead, he gives all the credit to the cavalry and their swordsmanship for defeating the monsters. Filled with pride, the Duke praises his son while Commander Helmet is seriously impressed by the 10-year-old's leadership ability. In reality, Helmet is the one who actually taught the boy all about military, strategy, and swordsmanship. So our young master was really learning from the best of the best. Helmet realized it wouldn't be long until they were fighting real territorial wars, and the very thought of it got Dale excited. He was looking for a new challenge for himself. It's been a while, so let's check on Charlotte's progress. Attacks are getting tougher to dodge, but Dale always capitalizes on his chances to strike back. She still defends herself properly, even when Dale overwhelms her with a flurry of charges. Even then, her sudden stab catches him by surprise. Charlotte's fighting skills have improved fast, but she still felt she was way inferior to him. I mean, he's a third circle mage who cleared the 20th tier of the tower. People were constantly championing the young master's achievements, to the point where even Charlotte got sick of hearing about him. Dale just laughs and assures the blonde young lady that her time will definitely come. No cap, she's destined to be a powerhouse. And she was low, but Charlotte gets totally triggered by the comment, not liking how he's treating her like some little kid, which is honestly pretty funny. Dale just tells her straight up that he's already an adult, a fact she just laughs off as a joke after they're done training. Later on, our boy is sitting with his uncle Sir Helmet, who starts breaking down a battle tactic for him called the Hammer and Anvil. It's a strategy used when two armies are about to throw down. The cavalry's main goal is to bust through the enemy's flanks to start. At the same time, the infantry holds the line and tanks the main attack, and the whole Hammer and Anvil name comes from the fact that it relies super heavily on the raw offensive power of the cavalry charge. While this is all going down, Dale is internally connecting the dots, realizing how. Cutting the lecture short, the young master asks for the tea on how Charlotte's training is progressing. This question makes the knight pause and think. Even though she can't touch Dale's genius-level talent on her own, she's an absolute monster in the making. Her fundamentals are solid, and she's on the verge of learning aura cultivation, but there's one massive issue holding her back. Dale immediately knows what his uncle is getting at. It's the clash between Charlotte's fast rapier style and their family's heavy cavalry swordsmanship. See, mages get stronger by refining magic circles, and they build magic towers to amplify their power. On the flip side, knights build up their strength by forming orders and passing down their secret techniques. The Noir family's black cavalry are basically human tanks. Their entire combat philosophy. On any battlefield, they just lean into raw firepower, which is the core of the problem, since Charlotte's sword style is all about speed. Instead of raw power, her blade is all about fluid movement and freedom. Thanks to her insane talent, she could probably even become one of the legendary 7 sword masters. But that would be her limit. She'd never be able to reach the same god-tier level as the first sword. We're talking about the most cracked swordsman to ever live, the divine Knight Bardell, who also happens to be Charlotte's father. Sadly, his ultimate technique, the Sword of Blossom, the technique was lost to the world when the Night Nation fell during the Great War, and Dale can't help but wonder if it's truly gone forever. After this heavy conversation, the young master's training regimen gets a serious upgrade. The difficulty was cranked to 11. He was juggling multiple new responsibilities, and his reps started to blow up because of it. At last, the moment arrived for him to show everyone what all his hard work was for. The Duke gets a formal invitation to a territorial war from a Baron Parker. This noble wants to challenge the Duke's claim over some valuable mines. Dale knows that in this world, borders weren't solid lines like back in his modern world. They were more like vague suggestions. But even so, the fact that some low-tier noble decided to pick a fight with a high-ranking Duke seemed completely insane, but there's a shady reason for it. It turns out Count Brandenburg is secretly backing Baron Parker's claim, and he even sent a ridiculously insulting letter. In it, he basically said he'd help the Duke if they'd just surrender a cut of the mine's profits. Dale is both furious and ecstatic that this idiot still remembers the public smackdown his father threw him. Our MC is thrilled to give Brandenburg another painful reminder of who's boss. Ever since that day of total humiliation, Brandenburg just couldn't get over it. He was so salty that he decided to use another low-ranking noble who had beef with the Duke to get his revenge. Absolutely disgusted by this scheme, the young master volunteers to command the knights and shut this whole thing down himself. But he's immediately shot down by his father. The Duke believes Dale is nowhere near experienced enough for this fight. He even chews Dale out for suggesting something so foolish, reminding him that fighting against people is a completely different beast than fighting monsters. Next, the Duke reassures another allied baron that he'll personally guarantee the protection of his lands. But our boy is just devastated by his father's rejection. Later that day, he's completely exhausted, venting to Sir Helmet and asking why. His own father thinks he's not capable of handling a mission like this. Helmet just tells him not to let the Duke's words get to him. He suggests that the Duke must have his own private reasons for making that call. Putting that aside, the Knight Commander reveals he brought a gift for the boy, a chessboard. We're about to see some big brain moves, people. But here's the kicker. This game is completely different from the chess Dale knew in his past life. It's called a war game, and it's basically a simulator for real-life military strategy. Helmet mentions that the rules are incredibly complicated. He fully intends to teach the boy all of them, but Dale just snatches the board and takes off. In an instant, his mood shifts from depressed to super hyped. He takes the board straight to his father with a proposal he's going to challenge him to a game of strategy, and if Dale wins, he's stepping up to lead their family's territorial war, straight up defying his own father, who told him to stay on the sidelines. Dale claps back that war is a 4D chess match, not just a contest of who's stronger, and he wants his dad to test his brain. He challenges him to a single strategy game to prove his worth, and Sir Helmet jumps in immediately, trying to de-escalate. But the Duke shuts him down and actually accepts Dale's challenge, which earns him a smirk. If the kid loses, he's officially benched for the war. The game kicks off, and Helmet just has to watch them trade strategic blows. My man's jaw is on the floor when Dale somehow pulls off the win, trapping the Duke completely. The Duke was even holding back with a handicap, but it's still wild that Dale managed to beat him twice. Having proven himself against his father, the young master officially gets to join the territorial war. He even makes up a story about learning the game from old library books, which was a total bald-faced lie. Dale didn't know the first thing about the game, but he had to sell the story so he wouldn't look like a total weirdo. A deal's a deal, so the Duke keeps his promise, giving his son full command of the knights for the upcoming conflict. Even Sir Helmet thinks this is overkill, but Dale's father reminds him that he absolutely will not accept defeat. He looks his son in the eye one last time, asking if he's really prepared for what's about to go down. The young master loudly promises his actions will prove his words, and his father now has high hopes for him. Time jumps forward. We cut to Count Brandenburg's quarters, where he is absolutely losing his mind after getting some recent news. He just heard some kid is going to lead the enemy knights, and that's when we meet his son, a complete drunken fool. This dude is the definition of smooth-brained. As the eldest son, he promises his dad he'll wipe the floor with the Saxon brat. The Count slams his fist on the table, roasting his useless heir, and telling him this kid is way more than just a 10-year-old. He says the boy is a monster, completely out of an idiot like his son's league. Brandenburg is absolutely seething inside. He's majorly regretting not getting his hands on Charlotte sooner, but still puts his son in charge of the knights anyway. Hilariously, he also tells Philip that he won't be doing any of the actual fighting himself. The real commander is going to be Sir Milvis, pulling the strings from behind the curtain. Philip's only job is to stand there and look pretty. With that settled, he tells Sir Milvis to get his whiny son out of his face. Loki Brandenburg really wanted to fight this battle himself, but he couldn't let the world see him bodying a literal child on the battlefield. That would be a bad look. He knows damn well Duke Saxon cooked up this whole strategy for a very specific reason. A few days later, we land in Baron Greenbelt's territory. And this dude looks like he's about to have a heart attack. It's because his backup has finally shown up, but instead of the Duke, he was promised. A few of the Baron's knights start talking trash, wondering if this little kid can even hold a sword properly. Baron Greenbelt puts on a brave face, laughing off his worries, and greeting the young master, but deep down, he's freaking out. He's terrified that his only lifeline is a literal child who's supposed to command an entire order of knights. Greenbelt welcomes the boy inside, but Dale straight up refuses the offer, leaving the Baron completely stunned. Then the young master just casually raises his sword and rests the blade against the Baron's neck. Dale explains that he wants to personally inspect the quality of Greenbelt's forces before they move out, so he cheekily demands a duel with their absolute best fighter. From the crowd, a voice suddenly yells out. A red-haired warrior arrogantly boasts about his undefeated record, but you can tell he's dying. To teach this kid a lesson, Dale shoots him a death glare and pulls his sword away from the Baron. He then says that Greenbelt's soldiers are seriously underestimating his power. The young master gets why they're acting up, though. A major battle has been put in the hands of a little kid, so Dale slams his sword into the ground and accuses the soldiers of being weak. He says if they have doubts about him, he has doubts about them, and the only way to clear the air is with a fight. And our boy is more than happy to take on this so-called strongest knight, especially when it's obvious the guy is drunk off his ass. That comment hits the man's pride, and he immediately whips out his sword to accept the challenge. Habak of Greenbelt declares he'll fight for his Baron's honor, which is the exact invitation Dale was hoping for. Seconds later, as they get ready to duel, Dale asks if his opponent has heard any of the rumors about his skills. Habak actually surprises him by admitting he already knows all about the young master's capabilities in a fight. But that just makes things more interesting because now, our boy is left wondering why this guy is acting so confident. He's pretty sure this guy has a trick up his sleeve, so Habak blitzes forward like a bullet train. But when he clashes with Dale's blade, he's shocked to see a shadowy shield block him cold. The knight immediately goes on the attack, forcing Dale to dodge a flurry of rapid strikes. Our boy notices something strange, though. He can't feel any aura from this dude's weapon, which is weird, but not impossible, since very few knights can even pull that off. Deciding it's his turn, Dale unleashes his own power, tapping into the shadows. He swamps the knight in a pool of darkness. Habak is caught off guard, but his reflexes are insane, letting him slice through the shadow vines. He's stuck in a spot where he can't even focus on Dale thanks to the artifact's abilities, and our young master just keeps up the pressure. Dale spams him with a ton more dark magic spells. The most disappointing part is that this so-called elite knight, Habak, just straight up faints. Bruh is on the floor completely gassed. Now it's Dale who's losing his mind, unable to process how their strongest knight is this pathetic. Baron Greenbelt starts screaming at our MC for taking out their top guy right before the battle. This comment just pisses Dale off to no end. He asks the clown if he has any clue just how screwed his situation is. At their current level, they don't stand a chance in the upcoming fight. Dale wonders if Greenbelt plans on just sitting around and doing nothing about it. The thought alone makes him want to puke. He can't believe an elite knight could be so useless, even mentioning how the House of Saxon is sworn to protect people. But that doesn't mean they can just ignore their own duties. After this reality check, Dale makes a declaration. He announces that his family's knights are taking command from Greenbelt's forces. The Baron has a choice: either fall in line, or he can get completely wrecked. Without a moment's hesitation, the rest of the knights drop to their knees. They all swear their loyalty to Dale's command. Switching scenes, we jump back to the Saxon family home. Lady Elena is worried sick about her son's safety, but the Duke just tells her everything will be okay. He has complete faith in their incredibly talented kid. In the Duke's eyes, Dale's future is so bright he's practically already... The man thinks his son is about to take over the world, but right now, that kid is dealing with a level 9,000 headache. He honestly thought the people outside his home turf would be just as cracked as him, but they're all just a bunch of frauds. Then he remembers the Holy Knight, who definitely knew how weak the Greenbelt barony was and still sent him here on purpose. The next morning, Mr. Elite Knight Habak is hauling a giant rock, begging for the training to stop. But the Knights of Noir aren't messing around. They're forging these weaklings into real soldiers for the war to come. Habak is being a total baby, complaining nonstop. Dale tells his guy Surveil to focus on training these clowns from the absolute basics. He also sends a messenger to the Perker barony to open up negotiations. No cap, Dale isn't interested in some last-minute peace treaty. He just really wants to see the look on Brandenburg's stupid face before the battle begins. Dale's team works at lightning speed. They quickly set up a secure negotiation area right on the border between the two warring territories. Inside the tent, Dale waits patiently. By his calculations, this whole conflict will be over in a few weeks at most. The enemy's main force, the Knight Order of St. Magdalena, was already on a crazy long march across half the continent. Since their supply situation is probably trash, they're almost certain to try a blitz attack to end the war quickly. Baron Parker might be a scumbag, but you can't sleep on his knights. They're the real deal. Finally, Lord Philip shows up. He's the eldest son of Count Brandenburg and the supposed commander of the enemy army, here to talk terms on neutral ground. Dale figured he'd have to talk to these guys eventually, and he instantly sized up Philip as a total figurehead. They decked him out in some flashy armor, but in reality, he's a nobody. The guy standing behind him is the one to watch. Sir Milvas is the actual shot caller, the real commander in this fight. Even so, Dale kicks off the conversation with politeness and respect, but Philip doesn't return the favor. He just scoffs at the offer to negotiate. He sees it as a sign of weakness, mocking Dale and saying the little brat must have wet himself. He claimed Dale was scared to face a real war between men. Dale keeps his composure, brushing off the childish insults, and asks the fool a simple question. Why did he even agree to meet for talks if he wasn't going to take it seriously? As Philip tries to ramble and waste more time, Dale cuts him off, telling the jackass to shut up and let the people who actually matter do the talking. Dale isn't about to waste his breath on the puppet they've propped up as the face of this battle. He's here for a real conversation. He wants to talk to the actual commander, Sir Milva's the Pure Sword, even though they tried to keep that info on the low. But Dale basically downloaded their entire command structure. Bruh, you don't need a supercomputer to figure this stuff out. The Holy Swordsman would never hand the keys to an entire battlefield over to some useless Nepo baby who doesn't have a single drop of talent. Milva's tried to chill things out before Philip's massive insecurity cost them big time. The fact that Count Brandenburg sees his own son as a complete failure is supposed to be a super top secret affair known only to a few insiders. And yet here comes this kid masterfully rage-baiting Philip with some seriously hot gossip. Dale just smugly asks him, "So, how does it feel being Daddy's personal punching bag your whole life?" That's when Commander Milvas finally steps in, saying the negotiations are cooked. He says they have no more reason to put up with these disrespectful games. Philip is desperate to let his anger loose and clap back, but he's totally speechless. All he can do is sit there and seethe. Dale knows he's struck a nerve, and he's ready to just keep on pushing. He asks if the so-called Commander Philip has to get his babysitter's permission just to take orders from some rank-and-file soldier, makes him look more like a servant than a leader. Dale muses that maybe this is just how the firstborn sons of counts act nowadays. The way Dale sees it, this whole setup looks like a dog holding its own master's leash. Milvas tried to get Philip to be reasonable, but the rage bait hits different. It was way too potent. Philip's been absolutely owned, and he's desperate to feel powerful again. Dale just kicks back and watches the show, letting the puppet commander chew out the real one. He'd just chime in when he knew it would cause the most chaos. He calls Philip the Holy Swordsman's puppet to get him even more tilted. Dale then points out that instead of being his daddy's little toy, it actually looks like Sir Milvas is the one pulling all the strings now. No cap, Dale's rage baiting was a masterclass. In just a few moments, he completely wrecked the enemy's command. He was never seriously planning to negotiate with these clowns anyway. He turns to his man Sir Bale and tells him to step outside for a minute. With everyone else gone, he asks Philip for a private word with no one else listening in. A direct talk between the two commanders who are actually shouldering the weight of this whole conflict. Philip clicks his tongue, but since he can't afford to look like a puppet, he agrees to the private meeting and tells Sir Milvas to get the hell out of the tent immediately. Milvas tries to talk some sense into him, but there's no arguing with the ego of a spoiled brat. Philip is dead set on the idea that dealing with this mouthy kid from House Saxon is his job and his alone. Sir Milvas could see that Dale was playing Philip like a fiddle, but his hands were completely tied. With only the two leaders remaining, Dale's tone becomes way more respectful as he starts talking terms and conditions. He hints again that he's holding a card that could convince Philip to just pack it in. Dale lays it out if the Knight Order of St. Magdalena pulls out of the fight right now. House Saxon will foot the bill for all supplies needed for their trip home. Anyone with eyes could see how utterly humiliating that offer is, but Dale says it with a massive grin on his face. He even fakes an apology for his harsh words earlier, but if Philip refuses the offer, his whole army is going to get absolutely annihilated. And not only will hundreds of his knights become prisoners, but Dale will also personally drag the Holy Swordsman's reputation through the gutter. His dad's name will be completely trashed. This is the son's last chance to save his father's honor and hang on to what little dignity he has left. Philip just laughs at Dale's insane threats. He insists Milvas was right all along. This whole meeting was designed just to clown on him. And through it all, this 10-year-old kid stayed in complete control of the situation. It's a real shame, because that was Philip's final shot to even pretend he was a tough guy. When the battle is lost, Dale reminds him who will take the blame. It sure as hell won't be Sir Milvas, the actual commander. Nope, the one who will have to eat the loss will be the incompetent, completely useless firstborn son of the Count. But despite all the warnings, Philip refuses to believe he could ever lose. He's sure this little brat's smirk won't last much longer. Soon he's gonna score that dub and show everyone what he's made of. Dale just hopes the guy can keep that same energy when things get real. As expected, the negotiations completely fell apart, and Dale returned to the Greenbelt Barony. From a secret watchtower, Sir Milvas was keeping a close watch on what the enemy was up to, and they just confirmed that the Knights of House Saxon have started to mobilize. Milvas is a seasoned. He could tell right away the young master of House Saxon was just built different. Low-key, those eyes and that chill composure weren't what you'd expect from a total beginner. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but you absolutely can't sleep on this 10-year-old kid. He's not an enemy you can just write off. But hey, on the bright side, this is the perfect chance to take out an enemy who's only going to get more OP down the line. The longer this drags on, the more Sir Milvis feels like he's got to cut the head off the snake right now. Today they're going to teach that loud-mouthed brat a lesson in shutting his mouth for good. Meanwhile, decked out in his shiny new armor, Lord Dale gets the news that the enemy's main force is on the move. Mounted on his armored warhorse, the kid lifts his blade high, turning to face his soldiers. He calls out to the swords of House Saxon, telling them the time to make their enemies bleed is finally here, and they're being led by their 10-year-old. With a collective battle cry, the Black Cavalry charges forward as the trumpets of war blare, kicking off their high-energy advance. They immediately clash with the enemy army, and Sir Milvis dives right into the front lines, his jousting spear at the ready. That initial push from the 1st Cavalry Battalion is always the most brutal part of the fight. No cap, both sides are definitely going to take some heavy hits. For the enemy, the whole game plan revolves around one thing: stopping the Nightcrow Knight Order of House Saxon. Their strength is a total wild card, so right from the start, Milvis makes a calculated move to prevent any nasty surprises. He strategically places Philip near the center of the formation, keeping him well away from the chaos on the front lines. On top of that, he's got Baron Parker's troops holding down. Their job is to bog down the pretty average Greenbelt Knight Order. While that's happening, Sir Milvis plans to lead Count Brandenburg's elite soldiers and smash into the Nightcrow Knights from the side, while his center and left wings keep the main enemy force locked in place. With this pretty straightforward strategy, he should have a straight shot at his target once the battle really heats up. His experience really shines through in keeping his troops' spirits up. The Nightcrows, now surrounded and choked, are immediately feeling the pressure. Since their backup forces were tied up somewhere else, the knights, who were pros at fighting on horseback, had no choice but to clash directly. From the looks of it, the elite squads on both sides are actually on a pretty even playing field. But standing out like crazy in the middle of all this chaos is a little kid with dark hair leading the charge from the very front. The second the infantrymen lay eyes on the kid, they get this huge morale boost and feel safe. Young Master Dale might be small, but his presence feels like it covers the whole battlefield, especially when it comes to getting his men fired up to hold the line. No cap, he might just be the GOAT of 10-year-old commanders. For House Saxon, he was the literal point of their attack. Dude's absolutely unshakable and sharp as a tack. Watching this golden boy lead from the front, even Sir Milvis had to admit he was low-key impressed. So they have laid all their cards on the table. Their plan is to settle this with a head-on clash between their main armies from the very beginning. That kid is intentionally turning himself into prime bait, a move no sane commander would ever try. And this is exactly the opening Milvis was hoping for. He doesn't even have to waste time luring the monster's head out of hiding. He just has to call on the Knight Order of St. Magdalena. He points his own troops towards the one and only target that matters, all in the name of Count Brandenburg. Their one goal is to take that kid down. But it's not going to be easy, because the Nightcrows totally expected the enemy would try to zero in on their young lord. But instead of hunkering down on defense, the entire army just charges, instantly becomes the bloody epicenter of the entire war. Milvis grabs a few soldiers and breaks away from the main chaotic clash. His mission to assassinate Dale Saxon. His personal 1st Cavalry Battalion is made up of nothing but hardened, just battle-tested veterans. They've got full faith in their skills to end this fight fast and with no mess. Today is the day they'll prove they've earned their elite reputation, all for the sake of their beloved Count. Sir Milvis immediately shows just how deadly his spear can be, stabbing and cutting a path straight forward. But maybe he got a little too thirsty for blood. A Nightcrow managed to slip through his defenses, popping up to threaten him from behind. Milvis just grits his teeth. With surprising agility, he whips his blade around to deal with the lone Nightcrow. It was a tough little fight, but he manages to take the attacker's head. With that, Milvis eliminates the immediate danger to his side. But his gut feeling is screaming that something just isn't right. Taking a quick look around the battlefield, bomb crushing the enemy's elite forces. Nightcrows were dropping left and right, but honestly, they were going down way too easily. The moment they take even a little bit of damage, they immediately pull back to regroup. This wasn't the Nightcrows Milvis knew about. They had a reputation for being absolute battlefield demolishers, but here they were fighting all passively and carefully. But something feels wrong, and just then a frantic message comes in from the left wing. Baron Parker's forces are getting absolutely steamrolled and can't handle the assault. That's right, the left wing is toast. The very same flank that was supposed to easily pin down the Greenbelt Knights was now getting completely mowed over. This was not part of the plan. Those Greenbelt clowns were actually slinging aura, and the damage was massive. The soldiers desperately looked to Lord Philip, begging for orders and reinforcements, figuring House Saxon's own Aura Knights must have snuck in with the Greenbelt crew to shatter Baron Parker's defenses. Philip's only job was to sit back and wait to take all the credit, but now he actually has to make a command decision. Suddenly, the words of that little kid commander echoed in his head. He basically said that when this whole thing goes south, the one taking the heat will be the Count's Before Philip could even screw things up on his own, a messenger from Sir Milvus shows up. Milvus is practically begging him to merge the center and rear cavalry with the left flank to beef up their defense. But Philip's ego, fueled by Dale's mind games, went into overdrive. The dude told the messenger to shut it, completely ignoring Milvus's solid plan. Instead, he orders all the rear cavalry to rally on his position. He's not trying to play by the book. This guy wants to smash the right wing instead. He's convinced that before their own left wing totally gets clapped, he can take out that damn Saxon brat himself. When Sir Milvus heard about Philip's dumbass plan, he felt a legit chill run down his spine. He gave a clear order to save the left wing, but this useless punk wants to play the hero, putting who knows how many knights' lives on the line. Their own right wing is already pushing back the enemy's weaker left flank just fine. Throwing more troops in there would just create a massive traffic jam and slow everything down. But this clown, Philip, is so fixated on getting that kill shot on the enemy commander, he thinks he's some kind of god. He's ignoring every single call for help, which is leading to a catastrophic screw-up. At this rate, the left wing is going to get wiped out, and it won't be long before their main army is completely surrounded. Seeing how their formation was about to shatter, most of Milvus's officers demanded a retreat, hoping to salvage what was left. But Milvus wasn't having it. He stood his ground and refused, believing they could still win this thing just like Philip. He's also blinded by his own obsession with crushing that kid commander personally. There was something about the kid's absolute certainty of winning that just made his skin crawl. In the name of the first, Sir Milvus rallied his troops. They trusted their commander who'd led them for years and waited for his next move. There, in the heart of the chaos, they all offered a prayer, asking for St. Magdalena's blessing. They were putting their entire lives on the line, trusting in the protection of Goddess Sistina and her sisters. From this moment on, Sir Milvus planned to punch right through the enemy lines and personally take Dale's side. They raised their swords high and followed Milvus with absolute unquestioning faith. Bruh, look at all these grown men chasing a literal child. Where's the pride? Where's the honor? Meanwhile, Dale is just letting them get closer and closer, expertly reeling them into his trap like they're fish on a line. On the front lines, an amateur commander's focus always narrows down. The sheer pressure of war can mess with anyone's head. But Dale's just chilling. He calmly materializes a bow made of pure ice and nocks a frozen arrow. Even a veteran like Sir Milvus, with tons of battles under his belt, couldn't escape that battlefield fog that clouds a leader's mind. Seeing the absolute shock on Milvus's face, Dale cracked a joke asking if this was his first time seeing magic. Then he let the frozen arrow loose. It flew straight and true, hitting its mark. But instead of going for Milvus, he intentionally shot the horse that one of the knights. With its ride taken out, the knight went down head first, and everyone heard a sickening crack. You rarely see even elite archers pull off a shot that precise while riding at a full gallop. And yet a 10-year-old kid did it like it was nothing. On top of that, the spell itself was no joke. Without an insane mix of mounted combat and archery skills, pulling off something like that is basically impossible. But Dale was just getting started. One kill wasn't going to cut it. From a distance, he tapped into his go-to move, activating his third circle magic. He conjured a massive thorny wall of ice, creating a deadly chasm between him and the knights chasing him, totally blocking their path. Milvus and his cavalry get stopped dead in their tracks. This was the signal. The next phase of Dale's master plan kicks off as his hidden troops burst. They're here to counterattack, fueled by a crazy desire to protect their young master. The night crows pour out from every angle. No cap, they would literally take a blade for their young lord. With all the momentum on their side, and the shock factor cranked to 11, the night crows absolutely shred through St. Magdalena's first cavalry. Milvus realizes he just played himself, leading his men right into a death trap. He can't believe a literal kid just completely outsmarted him in a war zone. Those night crows were low-key just waiting for the perfect chance to flip the script. On top of his own massive L, that moron Philip also made the worst possible decision. That dude is currently getting more and more of their own soldiers wiped out. Because of him, the center forces are crammed onto the right flank, and the whole front line is a complete disaster. Unable to fight as a single unit, Sir Milvus has only one option left, and it's a total Hail Mary. With nothing but his sword and his horse, he tries to blitz past the ice wall separating him from the Golden Boy. He may have messed up again and again, but Milvus is still no slouch in a one-on-one fight. He's going straight for Dale, thinking it'll be an easy one-on-one. Milvus genuinely thinks he can clutch the win by taking out the commander, but the kid just... At the end of the day, Sir Milvus got outplayed and was totally outmatched even in a duel, before the sun even sets. Milvus and the handful of survivors from his cavalry are all in chains. Forced to their knees, little Dale Saxon suddenly looks like a giant. Dale only managed such a flawless, the raw power of his Oranites. The same old battle strategies that the Knight Order of St. Mag. Dale can still clearly remember the jailer from his past life, the holy swordsman who was in charge of that very same Knight Order. Whether he wanted to or not, he got a front row seat to exactly how the St. Magdalena Knight Order ticks. During his captivity, he came to understand their playbook like the back of his own hand. Just then a message arrives about Baron Greenbelt's victory. His part of the pincer attack was a success. The commander of the left wing, Baron Parker, has also been captured. Dale makes by pointing out how Philip's screw-up was the linchpin for this entire disaster. The trap was set, and they walked right into it. He then says almost humbly that the battlefield is pure chaos. Nobody can truly see what's coming, but in all that chaos, the people who end up digging their own graves have only their own dumb decisions to blame. Following the grand traditions of the Empire, Dale is open to showing a little mercy. He'll spare anyone who begs for the small price of some gold. The 1st Cavalry, however, is a proud crew. They immediately protest, refusing to buy their way out. They'd rather die, since that's the path they want to take. Dale snaps his fingers and casually executes one of the prideful knights right there. He turns his question to Sir Milvus. As expected, Milvus bows his head and bends the knee. He isn't lowering his head because he's afraid to die. The man is a soldier through and through. A death on the battlefield would be a privilege. Milvus wants to make it out of this alive so he can warn everyone else about what a true monster Dale Saxon is. In a final act of self-preservation, he commands his men to submit to their conqueror. Following the Empire's traditions, they'll surrender and demand fair treatment as prisoners of war. Since they're going so far as and beg for their lives, that should be the end of it, right? Nope. Dale isn't about to let some dusty old tradition get these guys off the hook for their crimes. With an almost angelic smile, he assures Milvus that not a single saint, Magdalena Knight, will leave this place alive. Without an ounce of mercy, he gives the order to massacre every last. For a hot second, the knights were shook by what their young lord just said. Imperial custom says captured knights get released once their ransom is paid, but nah. Their master's word. What came next was an absolute slaughter, which no cap cemented the undying loyalty of the Saxon knights on that field. One man, however, brought on his own downfall. Milvus refused to go out pathetically, so he snatched a nearby sword. He tried to take a swing at Dale, but before he even got into range, a blade pierced him straight from behind. His heart stopped cold. The Night Crows were always ready for dirty tricks, so Dale was never in any real trouble. As the life faded from his eyes, Dale left Sir Milvus with a bone-chilling message. The kid asked him if he recalled the hero's death. Dale definitely remembered this guy's face from the night everything went down. Milvus was right there when Brandenburg betrayed him. This clown just stood there looking smug as his lord drove a sword into his back. So, Dale told Milvus to really try and remember his own death all those years ago as he took his final breath. A terrifying thought hit. Sir Milvus, did this absolute monster really claw his way back from the grave to get his revenge? Dale answered that question by activating his shadow cloak and devouring Milvus whole. This was just the first stop on his revenge tour. A lot more blood was gonna spill. Only now is he starting to feel even a tiny shred of relief. Meanwhile, Pisshead Philip is getting absolutely destroyed on the right wing. The men he strong-armed in were dropping like flies. By the time he snapped back to reality, the battle was a total loss, his cavalry completely smashed. He then got word that Sir Milvus and the Oranites had been wiped out. The left wing had been breached and folded a long time ago. Way before that, the Black Cavalry had already surrounded the main force. He just couldn't shake the memory of that kid's stare and that mocking smile, while Philip was having a complete mental break and begging him to just make a call. Any decision was better than none, because losing and dying like sitting ducks was a major L for any knight. Instead of trying to cook up an escape route, Philip declared that he'd be fighting until the very end. You know, like a real knight of the order. His officers warned him that taking that path was just a one-way ticket to the graveyard. With a tremor in his voice, he gave the order for the final charge. Pisshead on his own useless commanding officer. If the traitor had known this was how it would end, he would have had a few more drinks. He would have held someone a little bit longer. He wanted to die of old age in his bed, not on some random battlefield. He just wasn't built for this. Back in the woods where the beatdown just finished, the Night Crows were hyping up their young commander. Everything went down exactly as Dale planned. They even managed to capture Philip alive and dragged him to Dale's feet to answer for his dumbassery. Even in a situation this humiliating, the Count's spoiled firstborn clung to what little pride he had left. And his cavalry might break, but they would never truly be defeated. That's a pretty bold statement for a guy who just tried to run away. To save his own skin, Philip had deluded himself into thinking it was his duty as commander to survive no matter what, even if that meant throwing a few of his men under the bus. But by his own logic, since the fight's already over, there's no reason to keep the commander around anymore, is there? Philip saw the boy pull out his sword and immediately started acting like he was ready to accept to settle the battle's fate in a one-on-one showdown. Officer Bale almost took the idiot's head off right then and there, but Dale found it hilarious and wanted to see what kind of garbage Philip would pull next, so he allowed the so-called duel. The bastard smirked, thinking he'd found a loophole to guarantee his safety and snatch some glory. He didn't even wait for a proper start. He just bum-rushed Dale. Everyone witnessed his trash-running form and sloppy sword draw on full display, and he was actually proud of this tactic. He was patting himself on the back for being so clever. If he could just slice the kid's neck, he could turn the tide of this whole lost war. Dale didn't even bother to lift a finger. He just let the shadows under his cloak do all the heavy lifting. The moment they touched Philip, the shadows left a searing wound. It was a minor injury, but it sent the spoiled noble rolling around on the ground. He acted like it was the end of the world. A single tiny cut was all it took to make him beg for his life. Dale figured he'd get some entertainment out of this, but this clown was even more pathetic than he expected. And so the war, which had started off so loud and grand, ended with the laughable screams of the Count's son. Dale returned home to a hero's welcome, with a huge parade and word about young Master Dale's first victory. A flawless encirclement and annihilation strategy started spreading like wildfire. Most people were totally hyped about his insane military genius. But a vocal minority was saying the sheer amount of bloodshed was just too much, with the church even claiming the gods would definitely not approve of all the carnage. Cardinal Nikolai of the goddess Sistina Church, Loki threw shade, saying the kid's sword is aimed at enemies today. But who's to say it won't be pointed at his own people tomorrow? After the huge victory parade, Dale headed straight home, where his little sister Liz was waiting for him. She immediately jumped into his arms for a massive hug. Little Liz had missed her big bro like crazy. Uncle Helmet was all— Liz grabbed his hand, not about to let her brother get away from her again, while Charlotte and Master Sophia just watched the wholesome reunion from a distance. Being a good son, Dale first had to go pay his respects to his parents. As the Noir Tower's representative, he was eager to formally report his victory to the Duke, who gave his son some well-deserved props. Sir Bale also got his flowers for mentoring the young commander so effectively. His mom, on the other hand, was just so relieved that her baby boy was finally back safe and sound. She basically told Dale he needed to get some serious rest after all that. Dale couldn't be happier to be home. It had been several long months since he'd last set foot in the Saxon ducal castle. No cap, there's nothing better than coming home. Meanwhile, Count Brandenburg was feeling the complete opposite of joy. Instead of a hero's welcome, all he got were 2 beat-up knights returning from the front lines, and that useless son of his was absolutely nowhere to be found. Terrified, they told the Count everything that went down, including the utter defeat of their knight order. They had to report Sir Milvis's death and Master Philip's capture. With shaky voices, they also explained that Dale Saxon was demanding a massive ransom to guarantee young Master Philip's safety. In short, these two got completely bodied and then shamelessly bailed to save their own skins, and the Holy Swordsman was not having it. If there's one thing the Count can't stand, it's a dirty coward who deserts. To blow off some steam, Brandenburg had the survivors dragged down to the dungeon to let them contemplate their life choices permanently. That battle, which people started calling the black and white turning point, got more and more exaggerated with every retelling. From that day forward, Dale, the kid who showed his enemies absolutely zero mercy, earned himself a new title, the Black Young Master. By the time he turned 11, his name was already legendary across the land. This year, his father had a pretty special gift in mind for his son. During the official birthday ceremony, Dale would be formally appointed as a Viscount of the Saxon territory. A Viscount is as a direct representative of the Lord. His father was basically giving him the keys to the kingdom. With deep respect, Dale expressed his gratitude to his father for the honor. He then said, even though it was sudden, he wanted to use his new authority as Viscount to take care of something right away. You see, the rumor mill was going crazy with stories about his cruelty, claiming he didn't let a single enemy soldier survive. Some haters were even spinning a fake narrative where the knights he fought were unarmed. Dale knows that anyone with faith in the goddess is basically collateral damage from his ruthless tactics, and the church is low-key already scheming in the background. So what's his big brain move? He asks his old man for permission to dip out on a so-called pilgrimage to the holy state of Sistina. His plan is to go there and face the music himself, taking full responsibility for the villainous rep he's built. Naturally, the Duke is super skeptical. He ain't buying what his son is selling, not for a second. He just can't get his head around why Dale would do this. For the Duke, having everyone fear you is a huge asset, something you can't just trade away. But Dale's dead set on ditching his own villainous reputation to get on the church's good side. He figures the religious faction is worth cozying up to, plus my man has a few other tricks up his sleeve. He's basically pulling a full Godfather, planning to give them an offer that's impossible to turn down. And while he's at it, he's totally planning to yoink the forbidden grimoires locked away inside the church. A few days before this, Dale got woken up by this super uncomfortable feeling in his chest, right in the middle of the night. He had this gnarly dream about a skeletal figure that was screaming at him to be remembered. It was pretty much the ghost of his past life. It didn't want to be forgotten, a classic memento mori to remind him of death. And for a dude who has already kicked the bucket once, that just hits different. No cap, his connection with death is way stronger than most people's. Dale jolted awake that night, totally out of breath, feeling like his skull was about to crack open. That nightmare wasn't just a bad dream. It was like staring straight into the abyss of his own psyche, the absolute darkest thing he had ever witnessed. It all went down in his personal mindscape, back when he had to brute force it open, just to form his third circle. The thing is, mastering that inner world is supposed to be the alpha and omega of being a mage. But here, our boy is getting absolutely wrecked by loneliness and some serious night terrors, all thanks to his own inner demons. One thing's for sure though, he's still seriously lacking in a few departments. He needs way more power to get full control of his mindscape. I mean, knights have their swords at the ready, and a top-tier mage is supposed to have a grimoire. And even though the Duke doesn't fully get his reasoning, Dale got the green light to head out on another adventure, traveling light, with just Bale by his side. Not long into their trip, they passed through the very spot where the infamous black and white turning point battle went down. This spot marks the border where the northern territories end, and the central lands kick off way beyond Duke Saxon's reach. For Baron Parker, the dude who got absolutely clapped by a literal child, there was only one option left on the table. The soldiers who survived that war and deserted ended up turning into a bunch of bandits, and today they chose the absolute wrong carriage to try and stick up. Initially, they tried name-dropping Baron Parker, looking to squeeze some money out of them, disguised as a permission fee. They're operating under the assumption that it's just common sense for travelers to pay a toll when they step into a noble's turf. Dale decides to play along with the bandits since he had actually prepared a bit of cash for this so-called toll. The bandits were totally hyped. It's not every day you find a target this willing to cough up the cash. So Dale just tosses a pouch of coins over, and the thieves waste no time opening it up to see what's inside. To their surprise, the bag was way heavier than a simple toll fee. Since their targets were so generous, the bandits let the carriage pass without any more hassle. Of course, that was all an act. The moment the carriage rolled a bit further, the bandits quietly drew their weapons. A few minutes later, Dale and Bale get stopped again by a scene that feels a little too familiar. It's a whole new squad of bandits also repping Baron Parker's banner, who smugly introduce themselves. This time, the Baron himself actually shows up. Parker starts running the same old script about crossing into noble territory without paying the toll. Bale isn't having any of that nonsense and insists they already paid the fee just a moment ago. He even brings up the fact that collecting a toll twice in the same territory is totally illegal. As you'd expect, the greedy bandits just play dumb. They completely deny getting paid and swear they're the most law-abiding citizens in the Empire, not just some thugs messing around. Baron Parker then demands they hand over every single valuable they have, or else they'll get to meet the business end of his famous sword. You know, the sword that survived the famous black and white turning point. Apparently they're calling Baron Parker the hero who turned the tide of that battle. This joke is so good that Dale completely breaks character. He just starts laughing his ass off hearing such a ridiculous claim. The young lord yanks down the hood covering his face and says he remembers that war going down a whole lot differently. And as soon as the Baron sees who's under that hood, a cold sweat just starts pouring down his spine. This is the first time he's seen young Master Dale since that fateful day. And even though the situation just went from bad to worse, Baron Parker tells his men to take a chill pill. After all, there are only 2 people in that carriage. The bandits have way more guys, and on top of that, this is their home turf. As long as they play their cards right, this should be an easy win. All right, bet. This was a fight they could totally win. First up, the archers drew their bows, and Bale was just waiting for the young master to give the word. He was ready to go completely feral. Dale was on the same page. It was time to end this whole charade. Baron Parker must have had some serious amnesia about what went down in that war. The fact that he still had the nerve to order an attack was wild. His archers were on point, though. Their arrows were meant to turn the young lord into a human porcupine. But Dale, always protecting his boss, moved like lightning and intercepted every single arrow, slicing them all clean in half with one move. Now that the young master gave him the green light, he was free to unleash his intimidating presence and clap back at the archers. The enemy hadn't even figured out what happened to their arrows when the Aura Knight was already on them, ready to mess them up. Bale's blade went right through an archer's arm, like it was made of wet paper. Without even flinching, he locked onto his next target. After completely shredding through the line of archers, Dale set his sights on the retreating swordsman. The moment Baron Parker came into view, the disgraced noble looked like he was about to crap his pants from sheer shock and terror. He immediately dropped to his knees. He started begging the young master to spare his life. Then he was swearing lifelong loyalty just to get out of this mess. Bro Dale hadn't even laid a hand on him yet, and this pathetic dude was already groveling for mercy and crying out to the goddess. Frankly, the young master wasn't about to waste his time listening to all that praying. Dale had dealt with countless scummy nobles and bandit knights just like this crew. That's just the price of admission for crossing the lawless Central Continent. After weeks of switching up their travel methods, they finally reached their destination. Stepping off a boat, they arrived at Dale's next stop. What lay before them was a city practically glowing with money and religious fervor. This was the papal state of Sistina Puchal, the city of the Holy See. No cap, it's a ridiculously over-the-top title. Officially, as far as Duke Saxon is concerned, his kid is here on a sacred pilgrimage. But the real reason, well, let's just say delivering judgment is a much better way to put it.